Today's like goal is 4,100 likes. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Your likes and comments are the only thing I need to keep going. Now, let's continue. The story begins in flame. The castle is burning. Outside, men in black hoodies are brutally slaughtering anyone in sight. They're not just killing, they're indulging in every twisted whim, even smashing the women before killing them. In the middle of all this chaos, our protagonist, Theo Ragnar, is fighting for his life, struggling against one of these hoodie-clad attackers, his strength fading, his body ready to give out. Then, we learn about the legendary Ragnar clan, the most fearsome clan on the continent, known for defending the northern realms from monsters for over 1,000 years. Rumor has it, their strength comes from a unique bloodline, a dragon bloodline, flowing in their veins. Each Ragnar is supposed to be born with insane magic power, endurance, stamina, and a natural gift for swordsmanship. But Theo? Poor Theo didn't seem to inherit any of it. He's no match for his enemy, who, with a single slash, almost slices him clean in half. Blood pours out like a waterfall as Theo collapses to the ground, his strength draining away. The man in the hoodie sneers, taunting. "Still don't get it, do you? You're just a useless bastard no matter how hard you try!" The voice hits Theo. It's familiar. As his attacker lowers his hood, Theo's heart sinks. It's his own teacher, Rendon, the man who trained him for 10 years. Shock and betrayal twist Theo's face as he screams, "Rendon, why? I thought you were like a father to me!" Rendon just smirks, his voice full of contempt. "A father? Don't make me laugh. These past 10 years, only God knows how I endured your pathetic existence. Every time I looked at you, I wanted to puke." Rendon's laugh is twisted, almost psychotic. "A bastard, the imbecile of the Ragnar name. That's all you are, Theo. If you'd just stayed out of the way, quietly in your mother's lap, you wouldn't be in this mess." Theo's heart shatters. Anger and betrayal boil inside him as he screams, "So this was your plan all along? You showed up 10 years ago just to betray me, to tear apart my home, Rose Palace?" But before Theo can finish, Rendon slashes his hands clean off, blood splattering everywhere. Theo shrieks in pain as Rendon sneers, "I'm done listening to that pathetic voice of yours." With a twisted smile, Rendon grabs Theo by the hair, forcing him to watch as the castle burns. "See that? All of this is happening for you, Theo. If you'd stayed in your mother's arms, sucking on her huge milkers, this place wouldn't be burning and your people wouldn't be dying." Rendon's gaze shifts full of malice to his right. "And finally, your mother wouldn't be dead." With a dark chuckle, a man drags over Theo's mother's lifeless body, dropping it at Theo's feet. Theo's heart stops. His mother is gone. Rendon sneers, "All of this, your fault!" Theo stares at his mother's body, his spirit broken, his heart shattered, but something inside him snaps. Rage consumes him. With the last shred of strength, he grabs Rendon's sword, shouting, "I will kill you!" But before he can move, another sword pierces his back. Theo gasps, his vision blurring as his life slips away. His last thoughts are curses at his fate, his life spent training and still powerless. If only I had magic, if only I had talent," he whispers as darkness takes him. "I'd teach them all a lesson." As he dies, a system notification appears. Theo Ragnar has died. But then another line flashes. Theo Ragnar's latent talent has awakened. Regression. Suddenly, Theo's eyes fly open. He's back in time, facing a much younger Rendon, holding a wooden sword, training him. Theo freezes, mind racing. "I just died. What the hell is this? A flashback? I should be seeing my mother, not this bastard shit-eating face." Rendon, with that same condescending tone, calls out, "Young master, what's wrong? Why are you just standing there?" But then, suddenly, Theo sees it. A floating hologram pops up in front of him, letters in bold. Tutorial quest number 1. And the task, punch Rendon in the face. Theo's stunned. What the? A hologram just floating there. He blinks, glancing between Rendon and the hologram. Is this how flashbacks work? He wonders, noting that Rendon can't see it at all. For a moment, Theo just stands there trying to wrap his head around it. But then, a thought crosses his mind. Maybe this is some kind of gift, a shot from the heavens to unleash all that pent-up rage against this two-faced lowlife. Channeling every bit of frustration and fury, Theo clenches his fist, takes aim, and swings it straight at Rendon's face. This is his moment, his chance to let loose, to feel free just once, to hit back at the man who betrayed him, even if it's just a dream. Theo winds up, everything in that punch, and wham! Or not. That punch, it barely lands. Hits Rendon like a light slap, barely any force at all. Around the training ground, people pause, mouths agape. Even Rendon blinks, looking absolutely confused. "What was that?" he mutters. Theo's heart sinks. This all feels way too real. Before he can figure out what's going on, slap! Rendon's hand cracks across his face, sending Theo sprawling. "I get it," Rendon says, shaking his head. "You're frustrated. The awakening ceremony's coming up and you're still not showing any progress, but that doesn't mean you go around punching your instructor." Lying there, Theo's dazed, stinging cheek pressed to the dirt. "What the hell?" he mutters. "Can a dream actually feel this real?" But Rendon's voice cuts in again. "Listen, young master, you should have used a sword, not your fist. But since it's your first session back, I'll let it slide." He turns away, leaving Theo flat on the ground. As he walks off, snickers ripple across the training ground. "Did you see that punch?" one trainee mutters. "Is he really a Ragnar?" Another sneers. "An imbecile like him? Useless." But Theo's not paying attention. He's feeling the sting, tasting dirt, feeling the ache through his body, his mind's racing. If this were a dream, it wouldn't feel this real. And then it hits him cold as ice. What if this isn't a dream? What if he's really back in his past? Just as he starts to piece it together, ding! Another hologram floats in front of him. The system notification congratulates him. "Congrats! You've completed the first part of the tutorial quest." Then another line. "You've unlocked the Ragnar talent. Would you like to accept?" Theo's head is spinning, but his hand clicks yes before he can think twice. And boom! A surge of power shoots through him, filling every muscle, every cell. Another notification flashes. "You've accepted the reward. All your stats will now increase at a tremendous speed." After that, the scene shifts, and we find ourselves at Rose Palace School, Theo's home. Our shithead Rendon is there, smugly telling someone that Theo's talent is absolute trash. He goes on, claiming he's never trained such a trash-skilled individual, but there's nothing to worry about. That's why he's here, to train Theo day and night, to make him the best. This shithead is here to prepare Theo for the awakening ceremony, all within 5 months. Turns out, he's saying this to Theo's mom. Hearing his words, Theo's mom feels a mix of relief and happiness. She declares she'll entrust all of Theo's training to Rendon, fully. With this, she hands him a hefty pouch filled with gold coins, asking him to train her son with extra love and attention. Rendon, with a seemingly kind smile, assures her there's no need to worry. He'll make Theo an expert, a true warrior. Theo's mom, although concerned, nods, explaining that her worry isn't about Theo's abilities. She knows Theo will always do well in life. She believes in him. The scene shifts again, and now we see Rendon strolling through the hallway, a bag full of money in his hands and a smirk on his face. As he eyes the gold, he thinks to himself how foolish Theo's mom is, chuckling darkly about how she really should be worried, because even if he trains Theo, the kid's talent is garbage. "A trash will always be a trash," he sneers. In fact, Rendon curses Theo's mom under his breath, saying that a concubine's blood will only produce more trash, just as her dirty blood flows through Theo. With a lustful glance at the pouch of gold coins, Rendon smirks, wondering which girl he'll blow all this money on. He's thrilled with how things are going. He's getting paid to train this loser. Plus, he's gaining valuable intel about Theo. And the reward for disclosing this information about Theo to that man has guaranteed his future. We'll find out which man he's talking about soon enough. Just then, Theo comes running through the hall, his face burning with frustration. He passes by Rendon without a word, his focus elsewhere, and the sight alone makes Rendon want to vomit. How would he ever tolerate this pathetic loser for 10 years? On the other hand, Theo is running with every ounce of strength he has, his mind set on reaching his mom. Another scene shift, and now Theo's mom is seen talking with her servant. Just as she turns, she hears Theo's hurried footsteps. She turns around to find him there, breathing heavily, eyes filled with a mix of emotions. For a moment, Theo just stands there, silent, his face full of exhaustion and longing. His mother can't understand why he's acting this way. Then, without warning, Theo rushes to her and hugs her tightly, holding her close. He doesn't let go for a long while, just clinging to her as though she might vanish at any moment. Confused, Theo's mom wonders if Rendon's training was too harsh, causing Theo to act this way. She reassures him, saying if the training is too much, there's nothing to worry about. She'll tell Rendon to ease up. But Theo's response is silent. He clutches her even tighter, tears streaming down his face, holding her as though his life depends on it. In that moment, it finally hits Theo. He has somehow returned to his past self. No matter what, he swears he won't let his mom die this time. Memories flood him of how Ren Dawn had cruelly struck his mom, of her lifeless body lying in front of him. Yet here she is, standing before him, alive. Theo can hardly believe it. His mom stands there, bewildered, watching her son as he silently sobs. In her mind, she wonders what has happened to him, but Theo's heart is burning with resolve. In his past life, he'd been weak, powerless, a failure who couldn't protect her. But now things will be different. If that strange system message is real, Theo can become stronger. Strong enough to stand against his twisted family. He vows that those responsible for his mother's death in the past will pay dearly. And first on his list, Ren Dawn. Theo's vision goes dark with anger as he imagines it. He'll cut off Ren Dawn's hands, then his neck, just like Ren Dawn had done to him. Meanwhile, Ren Dawn wanders off to his quarters, gold coins in hand, clueless about the revenge that's about to crash down on him. As the scene closes, a new quest notification appears. Tutorial Quest 2. The task? Push his body to the limits in training, and so we see Theo sprinting across the training ground, determination blazing in his eyes. Then we see Theo running like a madman across the training ground. Only one thing fills his mind. He has to become strong enough to take revenge. But he's hit with a harsh reality. This pathetic, weak body can't do a damn thing. Theo knows he needs to get stronger fast. In his past life, he had no magic in him. That's why he trained his body like crazy. While normal people had enhanced bodies due to magic, Theo had to rely on brutal training day and night just to catch up. This running? Compared to his past training, it's nothing but light work. From a distance, one of the other trainees watches in shock as Theo pushes himself, running for hours, 4, 5 at least. The trainee wonders, was Theo always this fit? Meanwhile, days pass, 2 or 3 now, and Theo's still out there on the training ground, pushing his limits without sleep or food. Watching from afar, a tall, tomboyish girl named Elvine, the manager of the training ground, notices him too. Even she's baffled, puffing on her cigarette as she watches. Is this really the same imbecile of Ragnar? She wonders. Is he really as talentless as they say? On the other hand, Theo's nearly dead from exhaustion. He's so drained he feels he could pass out any second, but he doesn't stop. Just the night before, he had gotten his progress bar up to 90%, but the moment he dared to lie down, it dropped to 89%. Theo realized he couldn't rest, not even for a second, until he reached a full 100%. So he's kept running non-stop, the progress bar creeping up to 98% now. Even though he's at his limit, he's so close that he can't give up now. The rage in his heart fuels him, pushing him forward as he whispers to himself that he'll run until he can't breathe. Seeing Theo's sheer determination, even Elvine can't believe it. With all his remaining strength, Theo surges forward, running around the stadium with speed and grit. Finally, his progress bar hits that 100% mark. The second it does, Theo collapses, breathing hard, then falls unconscious. Just as he falls, a system notification appears, congratulating him for completing tutorial quest number 2. His reward? The Dragon Heart. And because he completed it so quickly, he even gets a bonus reward, a touch of magic power. Theo lies on the ground, utterly drained, his body unable to move a muscle. Barely conscious, he sees the system prompt him to accept the reward. With shaking fingers, he clicks yes, and the moment he does, he fully blacks out. Just as he loses consciousness, a blinding light erupts, and a strong surge of mana floods out from his body. Mana, thick and powerful, swirls around him, startling Elvine, who stands there, stunned by the intensity of it. The scene shifts, and when Theo opens his eyes again, he finds himself lying in a warm room, dazed and confused. Just then, Elvine walks in, cigar in hand, and assures him that he's safe. This is just a training ground break room. She explains that even a Ragnar can collapse if they push their body too hard. Theo recognizes her immediately, and when he thanks her, Elvine hands him a warm cup of her milk. As he drinks, Theo casually mentions to Elvine that he's aware of the Ragnar clan's rule. Before the awakening ceremony, no one is allowed to open their mana hall. Elvine nods, then asks if Theo knows what happens if someone breaks that rule. Casually, Theo replies, "Why are you asking all these questions?" Suddenly, Elvine's tone drops, turning chilling and serious as she leans forward, staring at Theo directly at his with deadly eyes. In a low, menacing voice, she demands, Did you perhaps open your mana hall? Theo freezes, completely taken aback, a mix of confusion and fear flooding him. There's no way he could have opened his mana hall. He'd be dead by now if he had. Normally, if someone opens their mana hall before the awakening ceremony, without the clan's protection, the power surging through them would be so intense that their body would explode. Not even a Ragnar would survive. Just then, Theo remembers. The system had notified him right before he'd blacked out, saying he'd gained the dragon heart. Piecing it together, Theo realizes what must have happened, and he's amazed by this discovery. After that, we get a glimpse into the power of the dragon heart. Normally, if someone wants to use mana or magic, they store it in their lower abdomen in a mana hall. But placing that mana hall in the heart, that makes it way stronger. Only dragons are capable of storing mana in their hearts, though. Any human who tries would have their heart explode, their body destroyed. That's why every warrior, like the ones from Ragnar, craves a dragon heart. It's the easiest way to become overwhelmingly powerful. But humans, they've never been able to break that barrier, bound by their human limitations. And yet, here it is, that same dragon heart. Somehow it's now Theo's. Theo can hardly believe it. He's in a pretty damn awkward situation right now. In front of him is this psychopathic tomboy girl, Elwyn, ready to kill him at any moment. We find out that Elwyn isn't just some random person. She's a high-ranking swordsman who retired after losing her left arm and became the manager of Training Ground Number 4. Before this, she was the commanding officer of the white-armored dragon cavalry, so fierce that no men satisfy her. I mean, satisfy her in battle. Even the demon dragon respected her. Known for her fierce, principled nature, Elwyn's the type who lives and breathes by the rules, no matter the person's status or power. Dishonesty? Cowardice? She can't stand either. And if she suspects Theo has a dragon heart or a hidden mana hall, she won't hesitate. She'll kill him, right here, right now. But Theo, thinking quickly, realizes that these same rules she's so loyal to, well, he can use them against her. With a deep voice, Theo calmly challenges her, asking if Elwyn really wants to execute him on a mere suspicion. Can she handle the consequences? Theo reminds her that he is a hire of Ragnar, and if it turns out that her suspicions were based on false assumptions, she'd be defaming the Ragnar name. Elwyn, acknowledging the weight of this, nods. She knows the rules. But Theo's expression turns dead serious. A bloodthirsty look in his eyes as he reminds her of the punishment for humiliating a Ragnar hire. For a moment, Elwyn's the one who falls silent, before replying with equal seriousness, execution. With the same intense gaze, Theo presses her further, daring her to check inside of Theo's body if he's really opened his mana hall. Elwyn's taken aback by Theo's confidence. Something feels off. A strange feeling gnaws at her, but Elwyn's too strict to let that cloud her judgment. Rules are rules, and even if Theo has Ragnar blood, he's no exception. So Elwyn checks Theo's body from top to bottom. She's shocked. No mana at all. Theo's utterly silent as she scans him. Finally, Elwyn's face turns red, completely thrown off. She was so certain she'd sensed mana, but after her inspection, there's nothing. And Theo? He just stands there, his face twisted into a psychopathic smile, asking if he'd unlocked his mana. Did he do it? Elwyn checks again, thoroughly, and finally lowers her head in defeat. In a loud, shameful voice, she admits her mistake to Theo, vowing to pay for her sin with her body, pay for her sin with her life right here, right now. She even tells Theo to cut her throat and end it. Seeing her desperation, Theo just laughs, explaining that dragon hearts are different from ordinary mana halls. Dragon hearts, like mana halls, store mana, but a human with a dragon heart can hide it at will. The very existence of a mana heart in humans won't even be discovered for several years, so there was no way Elwyn could have known Theo had one. At this point, Theo claps Elwyn on the back, telling her she did her duty. She followed the rules, and not many would risk their lives for that kind of righteousness. But Theo? He's not some kind-hearted soul. Just moments ago, Elwyn had threatened to kill him. If he had a regular mana hall, he'd have killed her on the spot. But sparing Elwyn's life now? That might just prove useful later. Theo's 110% certain he can use her. Then, Theo tells Elwyn it's practically impossible to open a mana hall before the ceremony. Any attempt would destroy the body. So in his own twisted way, he thanks her for her concern, saying that even though he's just the bastard of Ragnar, her care makes him feel, well, oddly happy. With that, Theo says his thanks and leaves. Behind him, Elwyn stands, stunned and bewildered. She was about to kill Theo. Yet, here he was, thanking her for caring about him before walking away. After that, the scene shifts, and we see Theo with an overwhelming aura stepping out, thinking about the power he's got now, a dragon heart and 10 years of magic power. He knows he can become unstoppably strong in this life. A few days pass, and now that shithead Rendon is training Theo, all the while shouting and scolding him. Rendon's face is twisted in frustration as he berates Theo, demanding why he still can't understand even after all this so-called teaching. But on the inside, we find out Theo is just playing along, pretending to be weak and useless, though keeping up this act is harder than he thought. Just recently, Theo made a discovery. 10 years ago, this shithead Rendon had been teaching him nothing but useless sword techniques. Now, Theo realizes the technique Rendon's been drilling into him is a worthless, third-rate sword style. Theo's suspicion grows stronger. There must be a mastermind behind Rendon's actions, the person responsible for his death in his past life, the one who made his murder even worse. Theo has to figure out who it is. Suddenly, an idea hits Theo, and he smirks. With an arrogant tone, he calls Rendon's name. Rendon's face twists in anger, reminding Theo that talking in class is prohibited. But before Rendon can finish, Theo breaks his training sword, shouting with a deadly serious voice that he can't take this trash lesson anymore. "It's utterly useless," he declares. Theo questions how Rendon even became a mid-rank swordsman with such pathetic skills. Theo taunts him further, asking if Rendon really thinks he'll win with this trash technique. Rendon's face grows red with frustration, his teeth grinding in anger. But Theo doesn't let up, sneering at Rendon, taunting, "Are you deaf? Can't you hear me? Your sword skills are nothing but trash!" We come to understand that this is Theo's plan. He's going to push Rendon so far, frustrate him so much, that he'll be forced to resign. And if things go south, Rendon will definitely reach out to the mastermind behind it all. Rendon, after hearing all these insults, starts shouting in pure rage. The scene shifts to Camellia Palace. Just like Rendon, who lives in Rose Palace, Camellia Palace also houses a Ragnar descendant. Suddenly, someone is shouting the name Axion, and they inform him that, apparently, that bastard Theo is planning to duel his instructor next week. Axion hears this, quiet and calm, holding a glass of beer. But the informant doesn't stop, getting more excited as he explains how Theo's been blaming his instructor for his lack of talent, and speculates that, after this duel, Theo will likely be half disabled, if not worse. Without a word, Axion flicks his finger, sending his glass of beer flying. It strikes the informant's face like a bullet, killing him on the spot. Axion's face hardens, his voice low and annoyed as he mutters, "What does it matter to me if a bastard like him ends up half dead?" We then find out Axion is no ordinary person. He's actually Theo's half-brother. Beside him stands another figure, a white-haired boy in armor. This is Remy, Theo's other half-brother. Just then, an elegant, thin, blonde man walks in. It's Axion's uncle. The uncle warns Axion not to let his guard down, but Axion, still calm, replies that if he were dealing with a worthy opponent, then he'd take caution. But against someone so utterly useless, no need. He asks why he should be careful with someone as talentless as Theo. His uncle, however, keeps a serious tone, reminding him that despite everything, Ragnar's blood flows within Theo. This blood can lead to unpredictable things, and even the slightest chance can't be ignored. Axion nods, admitting that it's probably for the best. The instructor will handle it all for them. We then discover that the mastermind behind Theo's past suffering and death is none other than Axion and his family. The scene shifts again, and a week has passed. We're now at the training ground where a crowd has gathered, eager to watch this fun match. Among them is Elvine, with his cigar and a mysterious figure radiating a deadly aura. In the center of it all, Theo stands in a battle-ready stance, sword in hand, facing his arrogant teacher. Inside, Theo's mind is racing. All he intended was to get Rendon to resign, but somehow things escalated to this. With a dark grin, Theo decides that, since it's come to this, he'll get his sweet little revenge by ripping apart every inch of Rendon's body. Just then, a new quest appears in his system: fight and win against Rendon. After that, we're taken back to a week ago, where Theo is tearing into Rendon, straight up abusing him. Theo's got no patience left, calling Rendon's skill trash and telling him he's fired, that Rendon doesn't need to teach him anymore. Hearing this, Rendon is furious, shouting back at Theo, claiming he won't accept it. There's still time before the ceremony, and Theo can't just walk away from training. Plus, Rendon reminds him There's still plenty of time left on his contract. Theo smirks, replying that if the person who signed the contract doesn't want to be trained, then that contract's as good as garbage. Inside, Theo's burning. He wants nothing more than to kill Ren Dan in the most brutal way possible, but he knows he's not strong enough yet. First, he needs to separate himself from Ren Dan and dig up more dirt on him. On the other hand, Ren Dan's mind is racing. He can't afford to be fired like this. His mission would be ruined. Desperate, he chases after Theo, begging him to understand that without finishing this training, he'll definitely fail the ceremony. But before Theo can respond, a system notification pops up. Tutorial quest number 3, instructing Theo to fight Ren Dan and win. Before Ren Dan can grasp what's happening, Elwyn steps in, suggesting that if they're having so much trouble resolving this, they might as well handle it the Ragnar way, but damn, she's got some juicy oranges. This line shocks both Theo and Ren Dan, as Elwyn explains further. She's referring to the rule of the strong, a duel. In Ragnar, when nothing else works, they can always settle things with a duel. Hearing this, Ren Dan's spirits soar. He's certain he can beat Theo easily, and then he'll be back to training him as usual. But Theo's confused, wondering why Elwyn, who he'd recently saved, would put him in this mess. Elwyn, with a kind smile, explains that the duel will take place in 1 week. Ren Dan's all smiles, but Theo's left deep in thought, wondering what the hell he's going to do. We return to the present, where a crowd has gathered, eagerly awaiting Theo's humiliation. They're here to watch him get beaten, to see him disgraced. They're talking, sneering about how, according to the rumors, Theo barely knows how to hold a sword. They're mocking him, saying there's no way someone like Theo could defeat a mid-rank swordsman like Ren Dan. Hell, they think even a regular person could take him down. Ren Dan stands there, looking down on Theo, telling him that if he apologizes now, they can act like none of this ever happened. He warns Theo not to risk his life over his pride, but Theo, with a dead, serious expression, cuts him off, telling him this is exactly what he was going to say. If you don't want to become a one-armed swordsman, then I suggest you accept that you're fired. This sets Ren Dan off. His face reddens, veins popping as he thinks about the insult. He hadn't planned on beating Theo today, but after this attitude, there's no way he'll rest until he's knocked Theo senseless. And if Theo accidentally dies from being too weak in a sparring session, well, Ren Dan would sleep just fine tonight. Ren Dan glares at Theo, telling him that as his teacher, he'll give Theo the first move. Theo dashes toward him, and the fight begins. The crowd's shocked. Theo's barely managing to keep up, barely blocking Ren Dan's attacks. At any moment, it looks like Theo's about to lose. The onlookers are stunned. They'd heard rumors of Theo's uselessness, but seeing it in action, they can't believe that someone with Ragnar blood could be this weak. Ren Dan, full of arrogance, mocks Theo, taunting that if he just bows his head and apologizes in front of everyone, maybe he'll spare him. But deep down, he knows. Even if Theo did apologize, he'd still kill him senseless in the future. It's a win-win for Ren Dan. A flashback hits us. A week ago, Theo had gone to Elwyn, furious, demanding why Elwyn would suggest a duel. Elwyn had explained that he just wanted to help Theo. If Theo wanted to fire Ren Dan because he was getting bad vibes, it wouldn't work. Someone big was behind Ren Dan, and even if Theo fired him, the problem wouldn't end there. Shocked, Theo asked if Elwyn knew who was behind this. Elwyn replied that from the moment he'd seen Ren Dan teaching that garbage sword technique, he'd started to suspect. Theo's mind reeled. In his past life, Elwyn must have noticed someone was trying to mess with him, but she never lifted a finger to help. Was it because Theo had spared her life in this one? Elwyn continued, setting her cup of hot milk down, explaining that his investigation led straight to Camellia Palace. Elwyn, with a cheeky smile, tells Theo she is 100% sure that Theo can beat Ren Dan. "You're underestimating yourself, man," Elwyn says confidently. Now, back to the present, where Ren Dan, like a mad beast, throws deadly blows at Theo, aiming to kill. Theo blocks each attack, and soon Ren Dan realizes something is off. Despite all his strikes, there's not a single scratch on Theo. He's blocking them all with ease. Ren Dan's mind races, doubting what he sees. This isn't the same Theo he's always known. A hint of worry creeps in as he asks himself, how did Theo's skill grow this much? Gradually, the crowd catches on, watching in amazement as Theo handles Ren Dan's attacks. Among the onlookers is Remy, hiding in a hoodie, watching quietly from the back. Meanwhile, our tomboy waifu, Elwyn, stands to the side, a small smile on her face, glaring Theo. Then, we flash back to a week ago, when Elwyn made Theo an offer. Spend 7 days with her, Theo have to give the entire day and night to Elwyn. He have to surrender his body to Elwyn. Elwyn promised that after just 7 days, Theo would be able to defeat a third-rate swordsman like Rendon easily. Hearing this, Theo couldn't help but smile, excitement bubbling up as he started laughing. Things had turned out better than he'd ever imagined. Sparing Elwyn's life? Definitely worth it. However, one thing still bugged him. Curious, Theo asked why Elwyn was going so far to help him. Was it just the Mana Hall incident? Elwyn looked thoughtful, nodding, but also hinted that there was another reason, a reason Theo would understand later. Back in the present, Rendon is struggling, barely landing a single hit on Theo, who blocks every blow effortlessly. Rendon is spiraling, unable to understand how could this be? Theo was supposed to be a talentless waste, a complete weakling. How was he blocking so easily? Then a chilling thought hits him. Was Theo just acting all this time, pretending to be weak? But before he can think any further, Theo's voice cuts through, dark and demanding. "Who's backing you?" Rendon stumbles back, his face a mask of shock and fear. Angrily, he starts shouting, insisting that he's just Theo's teacher, that there's no one backing him, but Theo cuts him off, his voice deadly serious, taunting Rendon. Does he really think Theo doesn't know about the trash lessons he'd been given this entire time? Rendon tries to justify himself, stammering excuse after excuse, but Theo, with a cold, chilling tone, asks, "Was it Camellia Palace?" The moment Theo says the name, Rendon's face goes pale, his reaction confirming everything. Theo laughs, the sound filled with menace. He asks Rendon a simple, terrifying question. Does he know what it feels like to have his arms chopped off? Before Rendon can respond or even process, Theo slashes, severing Rendon's left arm in one swift, deadly move. The cut is so smooth that for a moment, Rendon doesn't even feel the pain. He looks to his left and sees his arm, flying through the air. Then, like a waterfall, blood pours from the wound, spilling everywhere. The crowd is stunned, mouths open in shock. Remy's jaw drops, his eyes wide with horror. Finally, the pain hits Rendon and he screams, falling to the ground, clutching the stump where his arm used to be. Rendon is writhing on the ground, screaming, cursing Theo, threatening that Theo will face consequences for this, but Theo doesn't even flinch. With a dominating aura, red, dead serious eyes like a hungry tiger, he steps closer to Rendon. Rendon, consumed by rage and agony, tries to say something, but Theo doesn't care. In that same dark voice, he asks if Rendon remembers what he said the last time. Rendon had told Theo, "It's your fault you're dying here today." Theo's gaze hardens, and in one swift motion he brings his sword down. With a single slash, Rendon's neck is severed, his head flying through the air like a football. Blood splatters everywhere as the crowd gasps, horrified. The system chimes in, informing Theo that he's completed tutorial quest number 3. The crowd stands in stunned silence, mouths wide open. Our waifu Elwyn stares at Theo with admiration, while that mysterious grandpa in the audience just smirks at the scene. Theo finally feels the satisfaction of his first revenge. He wipes Rendon's blood from his face, a look of deep satisfaction etched on his features. His revenge number 1 is complete. And there you have it, folks. We've got ourselves another arm collector in the club. Remember, at this point, Theo's collected 1 arm and 1 head. From now on, for every arm or head Theo cuts, be sure to write it in the comments. After that, we see Theo standing in front of Rendon's lifeless corpse. Meanwhile, the crowd is in pure shock, whispering to each other, voices buzzing with disbelief. How could the imbecile win? They wonder. An apprentice swordsman defeated a mid-tier swordsman. How is this even possible? On the other hand, Theo's filled with frustration as he stares down at Rendon's body. He's cursing himself, thinking, this was the guy, this weak excuse for a man. In his past life, Theo had suffered at the hands of someone like this, but things are going to be different from now on. Just as Rendon breathes his last, the system chimes in, notifying Theo that because he defeated Rendon ahead of time, and in a brutal fashion, he's earned a bonus ability, the skill of observation. He's also awarded an extra year of magic power. Theo understands what magic power is, but observation skill? He's not quite sure yet. Before he can make sense of it, a massive shadow appears above him. Grandpa Julius descends on a huge flying sword, landing with a thunderous bang behind Theo, shattering the entire training ground. Theo's eyes go wide with shock, spinning around as Julius calls his name in a deep, commanding voice. Standing before Theo is Julius, a towering 10-foot giant with an intimidating grin, all teeth showing, staring down at Rendon's corpse. Julius, the demon dragon, commander of the white-armored dragon cavalry, the one Elwyn had spoken of, the man feared enough to make enemies run at just the sight of him. Theo's eyes are wide with disbelief, unable to comprehend how long Grandpa has been watching his match, or how he didn't sense him earlier. The crowd is just as stunned, staring in awe. Even Elwyn is taken aback, clutching his head, thinking, "Commander came in with excitement and leveled the training ground. That's Grandpa Julius for you, Elwyn's very own commander." Then Julius steps toward Theo, a chilling, dark aura surrounding him. Theo's heart pounds in fear. What is Grandpa here for? He wonders. Was Julius also responsible for his past life's demise? Did he come to finish him off for killing Rendon? But Theo doesn't flinch. Then, out of nowhere, Julius starts laughing with a wide, kind smile. He claps Theo on the back, congratulating him. Julius admits he's impressed, saying he didn't expect a student to surpass his master like that, though it's a bit disrespectful, considering Theo killed him. But hey, according to what Julius had heard, Rendon was total dog shit, so he deserved it. Julius laughs even harder, shrugging, "Who cares?" Still laughing, he claps Theo on the back again, offering him a place in the white-armored dragon cavalry. So this was the surprise Elwyn mentioned. Maybe Julius had seen Theo's potential and told Elwyn to help him out. When the crowd hears this offer, jaws drop. The so-called imbecile of Ragnar just got scouted by the demon dragon himself? How in the world? Remy, watching from the crowd, turns to the person next to him, asking if anything like this has ever happened before. Has a sword apprentice who hasn't even unlocked his mana been scouted by the demon dragon? His neighbor shakes his head. This has never happened. Remy falls into deep thought. Measuring someone's true potential is almost impossible while their mana hall remains closed. Even if someone's swordsmanship was impressive, they could still lack the magic power. So what has Julius seen in Theo that he can't? Could Theo really be hiding this much potential? Meanwhile, Theo, with a completely casual tone and a poker face, declines Julius's offer without a second thought. Julius's expression drops, his face twisting in confusion and disbelief, as if he's just bitten into the sourest lemon. Even Remy is stunned, and Elwyn, along with the rest of the crowd, stands there in total shock, mouths hanging open. The entire stadium falls into dead silence. Then, the scene shifts. Word spreads like wildfire throughout the Ragnar clan. The demon dragon had tried to scout Theo, and Theo had cut down his own master in the process. Everyone's talking about it, rumors flying everywhere. We then see a maid running to inform an elegant girl who's in the middle of her training. Then we cut to Remy, heading somewhere, deep in thought. Finally, a massive figure, almost 7 feet tall with six-pack abs, hears the news and raises an eyebrow, intrigued by the story circulating through the clan. After that, we shift to Camellia Palace. Axion's mother, looking annoyed, mutters that she can't believe Theo killed Rendon and messed up their plan. But then, with a dismissive tone, she says Rendon's death doesn't actually matter. He was nothing but useless trash. Turning, she addresses the person beside her, her brother, Axion's uncle, Edwin. Though she tries to stay calm, Axion's mother can't hide her frustration. She's worried. Demon Dragon Julius himself scouted Theo, and now Elwyn is training him. This means they can't easily assign a new master to Theo, and if Theo starts making a name for himself, controlling Rose Palace will become much harder. Just then, Axion walks in, noticing her tense expression. He casually asks why she's so worked up, reminding her there's no chance his father, the clan leader, would ever take interest in a useless trash like Theo. Their plan should go on just fine, so why not just kill him and be done with it? But Axion's mother explains that taking control of Rose Palace is best done by keeping Theo living like a useless failure. That way, when they eventually destroy Rose Palace, the clan leader won't care. But if Theo gains any real power, things could turn bad. If Theo ever becomes strong, trying to seize control of Rose Palace could backfire. A quick explanation. Just like Rose Palace and Camellia Palace, there are other territories controlled by the clan head. All these clans answer to the Ragnars, with Theo's father as the Ragnar clan leader. For any Ragnar son to claim the title of clan leader, they must first gain control over all these territories. This is why Axion's family wants to control Rose Palace as a stepping stone to succession. Returning to the story, Axion scoffs, calling Theo an imbecile. So he trained a bit, gained some power, and beat Rendon. Big deal, he says, laughing. Rendon was trash anyway. Axion waves it off, figuring Elwyn and Julius just have a thing for underdogs. But Edwin isn't convinced. He knows that Theo carries Ragnar blood, even if only a little. He refuses to underestimate him. With a sly grin, Axion pulls a letter from his pocket. Relax, he tells them. I've got a plan to mess Theo up. I'll show him he's nothing but dog shit. The scene shifts, and we're back with Theo and Elwyn during training. Theo thanks Elwyn, admitting that learning from a real master like him is a whole different experience. But Elwyn raises an eyebrow, saying Theo would have progressed even more if he'd gone with Julius. So why'd you turn him down? Theo explains that if he'd been offered this chance in his past life, he would have jumped at it without a second thought. But now, he has this weird system that lets him become way more powerful on his own, so joining Julius isn't necessary. Besides, he has no need to tie himself to a group. Making a casual excuse, Theo adds that he didn't want any special treatment and doesn't feel strong enough yet to join Julius, so he's more than satisfied with training under Elwyn. Hearing this, Elwyn gives a proud smile and continues with Theo's training. But as Elwyn talks, Theo decides to try out his observation skill on him. Instantly, a hologram pops up showing Elwyn's stats and background. Theo sees that Elwyn is a high-rank sword master, the former deputy commander of the White Armor Dragon Cavalry, and that Elwyn admires Theo deeply. For the first time in years, Elwyn feels energized and excited to teach Theo. He even misses the old days with the White Armor Dragon Cavalry. Theo realizes this observation skill is going to be seriously useful, but his thoughts are interrupted when a voice calls out. Turning, Theo sees a clan member approaching, who introduces himself as Drea from the Southern Inspector Post, claiming he has something important to discuss. Theo's unsure about this strange guy, so he activates his observation skill on Drea. And the result? Drea's reaction is downright bizarre. He starts blushing, giving Theo a strange, creepy smile. Guys, this is definitely the face of another gay. I repeat, a gay has been spotted. According to the observation skill, Drea is a 17-year-old apprentice swordsman who's loyal but harbors a strong desire to be close to Theo and wants to spar with him. Seeing Drea's awkward, blushing expression, Elwyn immediately pulls out his sword ready for anything. Theo, on the other hand, is completely thrown off, sweating nervously, wondering, what the hell does this guy want from me? Just then, the system notification chimes in, presenting Theo with a new quest. Discard the title of Imbecile of Ragnar, and it's already 28% complete. After that, we get to know that Drea isn't gay. He's actually a huge fan of Theo. Drea tells Theo that he's ignored him from the start because he'd always thought Theo was just an idiotic, pathetic loser. Hearing this, Theo gets a little pissed off. But Drea continues, saying that ever since he saw Theo training day and night, getting stronger from a place of weakness, he's changed his mind. Watching Theo's relentless training and his transformation, Drea genuinely began to see Theo as a hero. And then, in the crowd, he watched Theo slice his master's neck and saw Julius himself trying to recruit him. At that moment, Theo became Drea's ideal. Now, Drea wants to follow Theo, to be Theo's sword. So, Drea respectfully requests the chance to clash swords with Theo. At this, Theo gets a little annoyed again, thinking normally he'd have every reason to doubt Drea's real intentions. But, thanks to his observation skill, he doesn't need to worry. Theo checks Drea's status and finds out that Drea is indeed a swordsman, the so-called idiot of the Southern Inspector's office. But most importantly, Drea genuinely respects him, wants to follow him, and eagerly wishes to spar with him. Seeing this, Theo feels certain that Drea's intentions are true. In his past life, people used to look at Theo with disgust, keeping their distance. Theo never imagined that someone would want to follow him, but now he realizes he needs allies. He can't win a war or become clan head of Ragnar alone. And seeing that his tutorial quest number 3 is to drop the title of imbecile, Theo senses this is his chance to finally abandon that label. After that, Theo asks Elwyn for permission to spar, and Elwyn nods. In the next moment, Theo stands in a battle-ready position, his face serious. Drea happily takes his own stance, and they both introduce themselves before the clash. Then, in an instant, Drea dashes forward, unleashing a barrage of attacks. but Theo blocks each one effortlessly. Surprised, Drea exclaims that he may not be the strongest, but he's the fastest swordsman in the Southern Inspector's office. Yet Theo's able to block his strikes like it's nothing. Theo, thinking to himself, knows he's still carrying that idiot title. In his previous life, a single strike from Drea would have been enough to defeat him. But now, this is nothing. With a single powerful slash, Theo sends Drea's sword flying and knocks Drea back a great distance. The force of the slash is so intense that Drea spits out everything he's got, with blood dripping from his nose. Accepting his defeat, Drea bows his head in acknowledgement. Afterward, Theo glances at his reflection in the sword. An idea sparks in his mind. He wonders what would happen if he used his observation skill on himself, so he gives it a try. Instantly, a system notification appears, displaying his full status. Theo's title, Imbecile of Ragnar. His talents, observation and Ragnar's latent bloodline, with several other talents blurred out. There's a note indicating a strong yearning for the awakening ceremony. His level, 1. Strength, 13. Dexterity, 14. Vitality, 12. Magic power, a whopping 190. Intelligence, 11. And luck, -49. Theo's eyes go wide, amazed to see his strengths laid out in numbers. He finds it fascinating, especially the idea of viewing his skills through this status window. He notices that his magic power is extraordinarily high, probably thanks to the dragon heart. But the main question? Why the hell is his luck at -49? Theo realizes that this terrible luck stat might be the reason for all the horrific events in his past life. Determined, he knows he has to work on improving his luck, but before he can think further, he faces another big problem. Theo turns around and sees a whole horde of clan members just staring at him. Elwyn notices the crowd too and thinks to himself, sure, Ren Dawn was weak, but he was still a mid-rank swordsman. And yet Theo not only defeated him, he earned the approval of Julius. In Ragnar's clan, where only the strong survive, people usually have two responses to someone like Theo. Either they get jealous or they become a loyal follower out of admiration. Elwyn looks over the crowd and sees all their smiling faces and realizes, yep, they're in that second category. The cheers start, loud and excited as people yell that all the rumors they'd heard about Theo were true. Some of them start wondering if they'd even be able to block Theo's attack if they were in Drea's place. Among them is a 19-year-old named Naylan, a lower-rank swordsman who's burning to spar with Theo himself. Theo notices Naylan and, with a smirk, calls out, "Well, come on then, if you really want to spar." Naylan steps forward and they both take battle stances, formally introducing themselves. And with that, they clash. Naylan's different from the others. He's not some pushover, he's actually putting up a good fight. Every time Theo blocks one of Naylan's attacks, his basic swordsmanship proficiency climbs. Naylan is strong and fast, and for a moment he almost gets the better of Theo. But Theo quickly adjusts, blocking Naylan's last strike and sending his sword flying. Naylan's weapon clatters to the ground, leaving him defeated. Despite the loss, Naylan's impressed, giving Theo a nod of approval. Unexpectedly, Theo's luck increases by 1, and he gains a little experience. Theo continues sparring with everyone in the crowd, slowly defeating each one, gaining a tiny boost to his luck every time someone acknowledges him. 2 or 3 hours pass as Theo takes down opponent after opponent, leaving him exhausted. When he checks his tutorial quest, though, he sees that only 1% of his progress bar has budged. Theo sighs, thinking that since everyone already admires him, defeating them only gave him a small boost. Maybe he'll need to face a much stronger opponent, someone who doesn't already approve of him. Just then, heavy footsteps approach from behind, and a deep voice declares that he wants to spar with Theo. Theo turns to see none other than Remy. The crowd goes silent, everyone shocked that Remy himself has shown up. Theo's just as stunned, wondering what Remy, one of the 4 hounds, is doing here. We find out that in the north of the Ragnar clan, there are 4 warriors known as the Hounds, the strongest of their generation. The first is Hulkus, the second Ray, the third is Remy, and the fourth, and strongest, of them all, is Axion of Camellia Palace. And now one of those hounds, Remy, stands right in front of Theo, ready to fight. Quickly, Theo activates his observation skill and discovers that Remy is an apprentice swordsman, a sword genius with keen senses who's also incredibly hardworking. But the most surprising detail, Remy sees Theo as his rival. Seeing this, Theo accepts Remy's offer, announcing, "I, Theo, 31st son of the clan head and an apprentice swordsman, preparing for the awakening ceremony, accept your challenge." But inside, Theo is thrilled. He never imagined he'd be dueling Remy, the genius swordsman he had respected so much in his past life, so soon. But then, a funny thought hits him. Wait, 31st son? Holy hell, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. His dad is a whore. Clearing his thoughts, Theo nods and says, "It's an honor to cross swords with you, Remy." Inside, he's hyped to face an opponent who's his own age, and finally, someone strong. Remy, just as excited, approaches Theo, exuding a dominating aura like a silver lion. And then, in an instant, he dashes forward, his sword slicing through the air toward Theo. After that, we see that, with just a single swing from Remy, Theo's sword snaps and falls into pieces. All the sparring had worn it down, and now, with this final slash, the whole sword breaks apart. Seeing this, Theo's fans are shocked. The moment his broken sword hits the training ground, a heavy silence falls over the crowd. Because there stands Remy, holding his blade at Theo's neck. And just like that, Theo loses with a single strike. Drea, watching from the sidelines, is furious. He can't believe it. "How can this happen?" he shouts. "How can Theo lose?" Another clan member nearby shakes his head, saying, "It was bound to happen. No matter how much Theo's trained, he can't beat one of the four hounds, the strongest of this generation." But Drea, refusing to let anyone disrespect his young master, quickly defends Theo, saying, "Even if he lost, Theo's fighting spirit was high, and for that I respect him." Then, suddenly, from behind, Remy speaks up, surprising everyone. He says, "No, it was my loss." Gasps ripple through the crowd as Remy thanks Theo for the duel, explaining that Theo's sword was already damaged and that he was clearly exhausted, making it an unfair duel. But Theo, still standing strong, responds, "On a battlefield, no one gives excuses like that. This was my loss." Remy smiles at this, and the two shake hands. Remy then says, "I hope we'll have a proper duel next time." And just like that, a new friendship is formed. The crowd around them erupts in cheers, buzzing with excitement that one of the four hounds is now acknowledging Theo. This boosts Theo's tutorial quest number 4 progress by 35%. As he shakes Remy's hand, Theo realizes just how strong Remy is, especially since they're the same age. Theo now understands that even with his newfound talent and the secret manual from the system making him much stronger than in his previous life, he's still lacking in many areas. Losing this duel may have been a blow to his pride, but it wasn't without benefits. Theo's luck increased by 10, and his reputation within the clan skyrocketed. Thinking about all this, Theo realizes that if he wants to remove his trash title for good, he'll need to defeat a powerful opponent in front of a massive crowd. Someone who doesn't already approve of him, that's the only way. As Theo's mind races with these thoughts, Remy calls out to him saying, "Honestly, I didn't come here just for a duel." While speaking, Remy pulls out a letter and hands it to Theo, explaining that he came to deliver this. Theo's confused, unsure of what it's about. Remy then reveals that it's an invitation from the Scaled Dragon Society. The name alone sends shockwaves through Theo, and even Drea, who lets out an excited yell. Drea explains that the Scaled Dragon Society is an elite group open only to the allies of the allies, and now Theo has been invited. Seeing the letter, Theo is a bit surprised but accepts it with a question. "Are you sure it's all right for someone like me to join such an allied group?" Remy, shocked at Theo's modesty, quickly tells him to stop talking nonsense because he's more than qualified. To reassure Theo, Remy adds, "It's not as famous as you're thinking. It's just a regular social group, mainly for those of us preparing for the upcoming awakening ceremony." Hearing this, Drea jumps in, asking, "Wait, why didn't I get an invitation?" Remy doesn't answer, just gives a slight smile. Meanwhile, Theo tries to look pleased on the outside, but inside he knows this invitation could be a big trap. After all, the Scaled Dragon Society is centered around Axion, and that place is filled with guys who look down on him. This is the same place where people killed Theo in his previous life. Still, it's a perfect setup to progress his quest. He's ready to take on each and every person once he steps foot inside Camellia Palace. So, Theo accepts the invitation. Afterward, Theo and Remy continue talking, while Elwyn smokes her cigar nearby, her face serious, as if she thinks Theo's just made a big mistake. The scene shifts to Rose Palace, where Theo's mom is all smiles, thrilled to hear that her son's been invited to join the Scaled Dragon Society. She hurries to Theo, bringing along a whole team to help make new clothes. Before Theo can even process what's happening, his mom proudly says, "Theo, you got invited to such a prestigious elite group. You can't go dressed in ordinary clothes now, right? There'll be all sorts of elites there." As she's speaking, all the attendants start taking Theo's measurements to make him a fresh new outfit. His mom even starts measuring Theo's chest herself. And yeah, but damn, her measurements are not bad either. Anyway, back to the story. While taking measurements, she tells him, "I know you'll carry yourself perfectly, Theo, but you need to be careful around those people." She adds, "If you need anything at all, just let me know and I'll bring it to you." Then Theo finally sees her true feelings. Until now, she's always cursed herself, believing she's a useless mother because Theo wasn't born with any special talent. She even tells him, her voice a bit shaky, that she's so happy to be of some help to her dear son Theo. In this moment, Theo realizes she's always felt guilty, thinking it was her fault he'd been given such a terrible label. He imagines how hard it must have been for her, living in the cold, ruthless Ragnar clan with a son like him. As she hugs him, her voice drops to a sad whisper. "I believe in you, Theo. I really do. You can do this." Theo smiles and hugs her back, feeling a warmth he hasn't felt in years. The servants smile at the touching scene, and for Theo, it's truly an emotional moment. His mom pulls him in tighter, saying she can hardly believe her son's joining the Scaled Dragon Society. And in his mind, Theo's already thinking, just wait. Scaled Dragon Society. I'm about to pulverize you. 2 weeks later, the day finally arrives. Theo steps out, dressed for the banquet, and finds Remy waiting outside the gate with a horse-drawn carriage. Remy's eyes go wide when he sees Theo. He's never seen him dressed like this before, so formal and looking almost handsome. Remy stares, a bit surprised, then laughs. "Look at you, Theo. You look like a completely new person. Actually, you're looking kinda handsome." Theo, rolling his eyes, says, Yeah, don't get carried away." Remy keeps up the teasing, and Theo just shakes his head and climbs into the carriage. During the ride, Theo reflects on the past 2 weeks. Remy had come to the training ground almost every day, sparring and training with him. Even Theo's followers got a boost from having Remy around, making a lot of progress themselves. In fact, none of them wanted to leave training ground number 4 anymore, so Elwyn had to train all those people too. It's been a tiring few weeks, to say the least. On their way, Remy warns Theo that if things seem a little strange at the banquet, he shouldn't worry. "I've got this friend, Axion," Remy explains. "He's mischievous. Actually, he's the one who gave me your invitation. Said he was looking forward to meeting you." The moment Remy mentions Axion, Theo knows his suspicions were right. This was all Axion's doing. But Theo's not worried. In fact, he's more than ready. With a secret plan in mind, he thinks, "This is gonna be perfect. The more they try to insult me, the better. Can't wait." Meanwhile, over at Camellia Palace, Axion sits with a glass of beer, waiting with a sinister grin. "So Theo, the imbecile of Ragnar," he says, chuckling. "I can't wait to have some fun with my new toy." After that, the scene shifts, and we see the carriage arriving at the Scaled Dragon Society. Theo and Remy step down, and Theo pauses, taking in the sight. He's finally reached Camellia Palace. This is the same place that set Rendon on him for 10 years, the same place that wrecked Theo and his mom in his past life. Remy takes Theo inside, showing him around, explaining that Axion will likely stand at the entrance to greet him. But Theo already knows that's not happening. Axion's planning something to humiliate him in front of everyone. But Theo's got a secret plan too, one he's very confident about. Suddenly Theo catches sight of something, a blue glow like a system notification. Before he can process it, something falls from above. Remy jumps in to save him, but it's too late. As the dust clears, they realize it was just a bag of flour meant to ruin Theo's clothes. Theo easily dodges, thinking that in his previous life, he'd have been helpless to avoid it. He's grateful his mom's dress for him wasn't damaged. Remy, on the other hand, is furious. His face twisted in anger. He demands to know who did this. Theo, surprised by Remy's reaction, checks him with his observation skill and confirms that Remy is genuinely mad. Theo realizes that Axion and Remy aren't together in this. He was doubtful before, but after this, he's sure. Then 3 clan members step out smirking, and from the shadows, a deep, mocking voice says, "It was just a greeting between brothers, nothing more." Remy, even more incensed, snaps back, "What kind of greeting is this for a guest?" It's Axion's voice, and he taunts with a chilling tone. "Why so angry, Remy? It was just a brotherly greeting, right? Theo quickly checks Axion's status and finds his talents: madness, psychopathy, and overwhelming swordsmanship skill. Theo realizes that Axion's not just fooling around. He's thrilled to have a new toy to torment. Theo pauses, then laughs and thanks Axion, leaving him visibly confused. With a polite smile, Theo says, "With such a welcoming gesture, it's only natural to say thank you, right? I'm really looking forward to the party tonight." Axion, who had expected anger and humiliation, is surprised but thrilled by Theo's calmness and smile. He laughs with delight, saying that Theo is heaven sent. Finally, Theo and Remy enter the banquet hall. Only a few have been invited. Let me clarify the Ragnar clan hierarchy. There's a main branch and a sub-branch. Members of the main bloodline, like Axion, and half-bloods like Theo, have the right to fight for the clan leader's succession. But sub-branch members, while part of the Ragnar lineage, don't have that right. They aren't direct descendants of the clan head, so while everyone here is Ragnar clan, none have a direct bloodline. Back to the scene. The clan members start whispering about Theo and Remy, questioning why Axion invited Theo at all. Won't he just ruin the party? Someone scoffs. Another member says Axion only brought Theo to toy with him. What the hell? Is Axion also a gay? Seeing this environment, Remy apologizes to Theo, saying he never thought the party would be spoiled like this. But Theo shrugs it off, saying, "No worries, I don't care about their gossip." His focus is only on the blue light above, which he's certain is a quest. While Theo's thinking of a way to get to the upper floor, Axion comes down the stairs, smug as ever. "How's the party, Theo? Enjoying it?" Theo tells himself to stay calm and stick to his plan. With a friendly smile, he tells Axion, "The party's fantastic! Thanks for inviting me." Feigning remorse, Axion says he may have gone overboard and then, in the blink of an eye, appears right in front of Theo, grabbing him by the shoulder. With a taunting tone, he asks if Theo will accept his apology. Right! Theo is bewildered. He hadn't even seen Axion move. Seeing this blatant insult, Remy clenches his fists, barely able to contain his anger. But to everyone's surprise, Theo keeps his smile. Syed, he only remembered Axion's greeting. Axion, taken aback, starts laughing and patting Theo on the back, saying, "I never thought you'd be this much fun, Theo. You've really changed from how I remember, and I gotta say, I'm starting to like it." On the other hand, all the clan members start bitching from behind. They're saying that Theo's just acting like Axion's little puppet. They mock that Theo is simply dancing to Axion's every move. Whatever Axion says, Theo does. They sneer, claiming that an illegitimate child without noble roots has no chance against the true noble blood of Ragnar. Despite being of Ragnar blood, they say, there's a world of difference between Theo and Axion. They add with disgust that Axion's family is noble, his mother a noblewoman from the Trovan family, a powerful swordsmanship clan in the east. They scoff, wondering how anyone could compare such nobility to a random woman from who knows where. They're clearly referring to Theo's mom. But through all of it, Theo keeps a calm smile on his face. He doesn't say a word. The gossip shifts to another topic, questioning why Remy, one of the hounds, is hanging out with Theo. Then another says, "Isn't Remy also an illegitimate child?" After a moment of silence, one whispers that this topic is forbidden, something they should avoid discussing here. Hearing this, Remy's face twists in pure anger. He's on the verge of breaking down and going berserk, and Theo notices. Watching Remy's reaction, Theo realizes he'll have to step in now. Grabbing Remy's arm, he mentions casually that they should go greet the other clan members. Just standing there isn't right. He slowly approaches the clan members who had been mocking Remy, grabbing a bottle of wine along the way. Coming up to a blonde-haired clan member, he pours a drink into the man's glass, calmly asking if he misspoke about anything. Before the blonde-haired man can respond, Theo smashes the bottle over his head with a loud crack. Axion and Remy stand there, stunned, as Theo stands over the man with a dead serious face, holding the half-broken bottle in his hand. The blonde-haired guy lies on the floor, writhing in pain, his head bleeding. He starts cursing Theo, calling him a fucking bastard. But before he can finish, Theo's boot connects with his face, shattering his jaw. Theo's whole demeanor is demonic, rage radiating from him. He leans down, voice ice cold, telling the man, "That was just a friendly greeting, but if you want to answer me with curses, that wouldn't be good for you, right?" The crowd goes silent. Shock. They're not sure what's happening. Is this really the same imbecile, Theo? But they can't believe their eyes. To top it off, Theo's progress bar jumps by 43%. Even Remy stands there, astonished. He thought Theo wasn't the aggressive type. He's learned so much from Theo over the past 2 weeks. And when these people insulted Theo's mother, Theo didn't react. But the moment they turned on Remy, Theo lashed out. The scene shifts as Theo says that he's finished with his greeting, and it's now time for his goodbye. Holding the blonde-haired guy's hand with a dead serious face, he begins slowly breaking it. The blonde-haired man's face fills with terror as he screams, but before he can do anything, the sound of bones cracking fills the hall. The entire hall falls into dead silence, and Theo's progress bar increases by 60%. The blonde-haired guy falls unconscious from the pain. With a calm demeanor, Theo casually brushes his hair back, turning to the other clan members and asks, "Anyone else want to say hello?" In an instant, 4 armed guards rush forward, surrounding Theo, pressing swords to his neck. They declare that since Theo broke their young master's hand, he'll pay with his life. Theo, unfazed, calmly asks, "Who exactly was this blonde-haired guy?" The guards tell him that he's the 3rd young master of the Hanvi clan. Hearing this, Theo just smirks. This was his plan all along. Casually, Theo replies, "So he's from one of the 6 branches of the Hanvi clan, a supporter of Ragnar, nothing too important." The guards look stunned and protest. "So what?" But Theo's face turns icy as he speaks in a deep, chilling voice. He reveals that he is a direct descendant of the Hanvi clan, the true successor of the clan. And since these guards have placed swords on him, he asks them if they're ready to bear responsibility for that choice. Theo's bloodthirsty eyes cut into them, and the guards feel a wave of terror, realizing they may have made a grave mistake. Seeing Theo's dangerous and bloodthirsty aura, the guards start thinking, is this really the imbecile of Ragnar they know? But then it hits them. No matter how much trash he used to be, Theo's still got the right to succeed the throne. He's direct Ragnar blood. The only reason that rule hadn't applied to him was because, well, Theo had always been useless trash. He wasn't strong enough, not even for himself. But now he looks different. At that moment, they realized this rule could actually be applicable to Theo, starting today. They'd already pointed their swords at him, already made that choice. Just as they start thinking of backing down, Theo, with a deep voice, orders them, "Kill them!" The guards freeze, confused by what Theo just commanded. But before they can even process it, whoosh! All their necks are cut and blood splatters everywhere. And who was behind it? None other than our waifu, Elwyn. Elwyn stands tall in her battle armor, slicing through all the guards with a single, clean slash. The clan members stand there, stunned, watching in disbelief. And with this, Theo's progress bar jumps up by 70%. Seeing this, Axion's anger boils over. Elwyn realizes something. Theo knew she was following him. She asks him when he figured it out, and Theo, crossing his arms, casually replies that he knew it from the beginning. Since he gained the dragon heart, his senses have become so sharp that he's aware of everything around him, even from a distance. This was Theo's secret strategy all along. We flash back to a scene between Julius and Elwyn. When Elwyn met Theo for the first time, she'd gone straight to Julius to tell him about Theo. Julius had asked, "Does Theo really catch your interest, Elwyn? I thought you'd sworn not to take on another disciple." He wondered if Theo really had that much potential. Elwyn didn't answer directly. Instead, she told him he ought to stop guarding his post and spend time here instead. Julius, with his usual grin, joked that lately his joy in life was tormenting her, which earned him an annoyed glare. But then Elwyn turned serious. She explained that, based on Theo's attitude and talent, he was the best student she'd ever taught. Julius raised an eyebrow, pointing out that Axion was equally talented, but Elwyn's response was firm. Compared to Theo's potential, Axion doesn't even come close, and she meant every word. Julius, still in a playful mood, joked that with her 2 working eyes, Elwyn was likely better suited to judge Theo's potential than he was, so he wouldn't argue with her. They shared a laugh, but the tone quickly shifted. Julius placed a battle uniform in front of Elwyn, telling her to train and protect Theo until he was strong enough that no one could touch him. Once they were both ready, they'd join the White Armor Dragon Cavalry. He reminded her that just because she lost an arm didn't mean she could retire. Returning to the present, Elwyn stands in that same uniform, a hint of worry crossing her mind. Had Theo known all along she was following him? Did he come to the Dragon Society just to set up this whole scene? Elwyn wonders, since when did Theo notice my presence? If he had, this Theo is no ordinary man. Theo is... From Theo's perspective, the moment he was sitting in the carriage, he sensed Elwyn. All thanks to the dragon heart, that 6th sense he gained because of it. His senses were now sharp as a blade. Then, in a deep, chilling voice, Theo orders Elwyn, In this banquet, most of the people here have shown disrespect to a direct successor. He turns to Elwyn, asking, "What's the punishment for such a crime?" With a deep, deadly tone, Elwyn replies, "There's only one punishment, immediate execution." Theo smiles and gives the order. "Since all these people are young masters of their own clans, just cut their right hands, that's all." As soon as the command is given, Elwyn moves like a shadow, slicing through everyone's right hand like it's butter. With each scream, Theo's progress bar rises rapidly. One of the clan members, in pure panic, crawls to Axion, clutching his leg, crying and begging for help. But Axion only glares down, asking coldly, "Why should I save your life? This is just a greeting." Before the poor guy even understands, Elwyn appears and swoosh, takes his right hand too. Elwyn and Axion lock eyes, staring each other down. Then Axion, surprised, finally speaks, admitting he never thought he'd meet Elwyn here. Elwyn greets him respectfully. "Young Master Axion!" Axion notices that Elwyn has only gone after those who insulted Theo's bloodline, meaning Axion's hands are tied. He can't intervene without going against the rules himself. Elwyn returns to Theo, reporting, "I've cut the right hand of 14 people who dared to insult your bloodline." She adds that if these people rush to the priest now, they might get their hands reattached. But as for their future in swordsmanship, that's a gamble. They may have to leave it forever. Then Remy steps up, talking with them, while Axion watches, his psychopathic smile twisting into anger. Inside, he's boiling, laughing and fuming all at once. He wants to kill Theo right there, but before he can act, Theo, Remy, and Elwyn approach him. Theo and Axion stare each other down for a while. Then Theo gives Axion a little push on the chest, smirking, saying, "I enjoyed this banquet. That was a great insult." With that, tutorial quest number 4 completes, hitting a full 100%. Theo turns and leaves, and Axion, utterly humiliated, is left shouting in rage for hours after. The system notifies Theo that he's completed all quests, and from now on no one will call him the imbecile of Ragnar. We see Theo leaving the Camellia Palace with none other than our thick, hot waifu Elwyn and the dashing Remy. Theo's reward? An experience elixir that boosts his level by 5, only usable for levels under 30. The scene shifts to Axion's mom in her office, doing paperwork, when a servant comes to report the incidents at the Dragon Society. Hearing what happened, both Axion's mom and his brother are shocked, completely speechless. Meanwhile, over at the Rose Palace, Theo's friends are in full party mode. They're cheering and toasting to Theo, praising him for giving Axion a lesson he won't forget. Theo, smiling, enjoying his beer, watches everyone celebrate, feeling satisfaction. And hey guys, don't forget to comment on just how many arms and heads Theo's collected so far. The scene shifts, and we find ourselves at Camellia Palace. Here, Axion's mom slaps him across the face, her voice dripping with rage. She hisses that not only did Axion give that imbecile bastard justification, but he even let his men get their arms chopped off. Axion says nothing, just stands there quietly. His mother, even more furious, starts ranting, her voice rising. She reminds Axion she had warned him not to take this lightly. Now, thanks to his foolishness, Theo has every reason to go wild. Axion's mom raises her voice again, almost shouting, "If that lowly bastard Theo gains even a little power, it'll be impossible to capture Rose Palace." Axion, apologizing in a low voice, tries to explain that he'll fix everything, but his mother cuts him off, ordering him to his room, saying he'll be punished later. She adds, he'd better start reflecting on how his reckless actions nearly ruined their great plan. Axion leaves, head down. As he goes, his mother, even more frustrated, mutters, "Who the hell does Axion take after to be so impulsive?" From the shadows, a man speaks up, saying, "Actually, he takes after you. In your younger days, you were just as wild." She turns, irritated, saying this is no time for jokes, but we can see this is Axion's uncle, Amelia's brother. Uncle Edwin steps out, calming her down, saying that this incident might not be so bad, but Edwin explains that since Rose Palace is technically part of the clan head's harem, it was going to be tricky to take full ownership. Although the clan head isn't focused on Rose Palace right now, it's still under his protection. Therefore, they'd need to proceed with justification. With a gleam in his eye, Edwin explains his grand plan. Since Theo cut the hands of their people while in their palace, they can now use this to legally suppress Theo. Amelia's eyes widen, realizing that if Theo's chosen violence, they can turn this into a legal battle, and if they win, take Rose Palace without lifting a finger. If this plan works, Rose Palace will have no choice but to submit. Amelia's expression softens, her anger turning into delight as she flashes an almost cute smile. She eagerly asks Edwin how long it'll take. Edwin, smiling warmly, tells her the legal notice will be on Theo's doorstep by tomorrow morning. Then, with a smile, Edwin reaches into his pocket, and Amelia and Edwin embrace in what seems like a loving hug between siblings. But wait, what in the name of Alabama is happening here? Edwin tells his sister that since they're expecting good news tomorrow, he's prepared something special for her. A romantic aroma candle straight from the volcanic arcane regions in the south, secured with great difficulty. He's even set up hot water for a soothing bath, hinting they'll enjoy a hot soak and a peaceful sleep together. They hug again, and Amelia tells him with a strange look that this is why she can't help but love him. Okay. Is this really what it sounds like? Let's hope it's not. The scene shifts to Remy, looking all sad and emotional. He's slurring his words, sounding totally drunk as he tells Theo he never expected Theo to care so much about him. Theo's standing there, confused as hell, not getting what Remy's talking about. Remy, still a little wobbly, starts explaining. It's all about the Scaled Dragon Society incident. Theo's side-eyeing him, thinking, didn't this guy only drink orange juice? So how is he this drunk? Remy continues, emotional, explaining how Theo had taken all those insults against himself and even against his mom without a word. But the second those clan members started talking down to Remy, that's when Theo stepped in. To Remy, it feels like Theo did it all for him. Remy's eyes are filled with tears of joy. Theo watches as Remy looks up at him, totally convinced that Theo loves and cares for him deeply. It's one big, awkward misunderstanding for Theo, who still doesn't get what's going on. Meanwhile, Remy's thinking back. His clan members had told him to build a friendly relationship with Axion's clan. But now he's thinking, screw Axion and his clan. Remy announces right there that from now on, he'll be following Theo. He'll be Theo's sworn brother. Hearing this, Theo's followers start cheering, celebrating this new bond, saying things like, the strong always recognize the strong. Just as Theo's about to clear things up, Elwyn's voice comes through telepathy, advising him that maybe this misunderstanding isn't such a bad thing after all. Elwyn adds that everyone might genuinely just want to be close to Theo. Besides, maybe Remy even knows it's a misunderstanding but wants to stick by Theo's side anyway. Same goes for the other clan members around them. Remy, smiling to himself, checks his system window, thinking how lucky he is. Without this system, he'd have achieved nothing. He notices that after the incident, Theo's level has gone from 1 to 2. Theo, however, is clueless about this leveling system, but notices he's earned a status point. Theo wonders, if I level up more, will I get more status points? And if I put these into strength or agility, will it actually make me stronger? A creepy smile spreads across his face as he thinks of just how powerful he could become. Finally, Theo begins his secret plan number 2, the counterattack on Camellia Palace. Calling Remy over, he asks if Remy will help him. Remy grins, pledging that from today, whatever Theo needs, if it's within Remy's power, he'll do it. Theo hands him a piece of paper, his face dead serious, and says, the war for the throne between me and Axion is about to get fierce. Will you help me prepare? Remy pauses, thinking it over, and then we learn that in the future, Remy and his clan will rise to be one of the most powerful, strong enough to stand against the Ragnars. Right now, Theo sees the chance to bring Remy fully onto his side. Remy takes the paper with a kind smile and officially pledges himself to Theo, calling him Young Master. But before their friendly talk can wrap up, the door slams open. Golden, fully armed, charges in, surprising everyone. And with him, law enforcement. They've got an arrest warrant in hand, announcing that Theo is under arrest for assaulting and intimidating the young masters of the 6 clans. Remy and Elwyn are furious, ready to defend him, but Theo raises a hand, calming them down. He steps forward, noticing that the ink on the warrant is still fresh. Surprisingly, Theo doesn't say a word. He quietly puts on the handcuffs and walks with them. Just as he's about to leave, he turns, pointing at the piece of paper in Remy's hand. And that's when we realize Theo had planned all of this. The scene shifts, and we're at Rose Palace. When Theo's mom hears the news that he's been taken by law enforcement, she's shocked. She stumbles, collapsing to the ground from the tension. Servants rush to her side, helping her back up, worry all over their faces. After a moment, she gathers herself and asks, "What is Theo being charged with?" One of the servants hesitantly replies, "It's because of an incident at the Scaled Dragon Society. Theo's being accused of inciting rebellion." Hearing this, Theo's mom's face fills with shock and disbelief. Who could have thought that Theo, invited to the Scaled Dragon Society, would end up in this mess? Looking up at the sky with an extremely worried expression, she prays for her son to come home safe and sound. Meanwhile, we shift to Theo, who's escorted by law enforcement into a massive garage, finally stopping in front of a huge building. This place? It's the tribunal where criminals face their judgment. Theo realizes that after what he did to the Scaled Dragon Society, there's no way this'll end with simple imprisonment. They want a trial. Bringing Ragnar's successor here can only mean one thing. They're questioning Theo's right to be successor. As the officers lead him out of the garage and toward a humongous door, Theo thinks they're aiming to crush him completely this time. But instead of dread, Theo laughs to himself, thinking this is exactly what he was hoping for. The door opens and Theo steps inside, excited. Inside, a huge hall is packed with people. Front and center is Julius, also known as the Demon Dragon, captain of the White Armor Dragon Cavalry. Next to him is Edwin, Axion's uncle, also known as the Sky Dragon, and the director of the Central Intelligence Bureau. The third in line is OSA. What the hell, damn, what's with those huge melons? The third in line is OSA the Sword Dragon from Plum Blossom Palace. And finally, we have Ulf Fang, the Elder Dragon and head counselor. Theo realizes that if he'd faced these people in his past life, he probably would have peed his pants in fear. But today, he's feeling no intimidation at all. Ulf Fang glares at Theo, his face twisted in disgust as the officer releases Theo's cuffs. It's clear Ulf Fang hates illegitimate children like Theo, and he doesn't hide it. Sneering, he accuses Theo of going to the Scaled Dragon Society and cutting off young master's hands, saying that Theo's foolish actions have caused harm to their swordsmanship and left them all suffering. Then Ulf Fang raises his voice, almost shouting, "Can a bastard like you even bear the damage you've caused? You've dragged Ragnar's honor through the dirt!" Theo listens quietly, not interrupting. Then he replies calmly, Ulf Fang's words are absolutely correct. Theo was indeed too careless. But then he gets serious, his voice dropping to a deep tone as he shouts back, "If anything, I gave them a very light punishment. I should have cut off their heads, not just their limbs." The hall falls silent, everyone staring in shock. Theo continues loudly, "All of them belong to the Branch family. They're nothing but Ragnar's subjects. The clan lord gave them land, honor, and a place to live. And what did they do?" Theo's voice rises with fury. "They dared to threaten their lord. They insulted Ragnar's bloodline." Then, with a fierce shout, Theo declares, "If I'd known they could be this insolent, I would have cut off their heads right away. They must be punished, and the principle of chivalry restored. How could Theo just sit by and watch Ragnar's honor eat dirt?" So is Ulf Fang trying to say that all the members of the Branch family belong to the main family? Hearing this, everyone is shocked. Even Julius starts laughing, saying he had always thought Theo would turn out just like this. Ulf Fang still glares at Theo, but Osa chimes in, saying with a warm and kind smile that she supports Theo. Still maintaining that kind smile, Osa tells Theo that while she agrees with his actions, he chose violence, so he must receive a light punishment. After all, one cannot rule the world through tyranny alone. Theo replies that he'll keep that in mind. We then learn that Osa is the first wife of the clan head and the best swordsman in the north, known as the Sword Dragon, for now, at least. She's not hostile toward Theo, but Theo wonders to himself, if Osa is so concerned about rules, why did she let him suffer so much in his past life? The judgment is announced. Theo will be given a 3-month prohibition, meaning he's confined to his palace and can't step out. Hearing this, Theo comments that the awakening ceremony is only 2 months away, causing Ulf Fang to grow even more furious and shout at Theo for his impertinence. Osa, however, calmly tells Theo that they've already taken this into account. He'll simply join in next year's ceremony, along with the 15 children he injured. On the other hand, Edwin is thrilled to hear this outcome. He knows that missing the ceremony will be a huge dishonor for Theo, one that will open the door for Camellia Palace to take over Rose Palace. If Theo doesn't participate on time, this ruling will give them all the justification they need to take it. Theo has no choice. He has to accept the punishment, but if he dares to appeal, they'll have every reason to crush him completely. Edwin feels sure that Theo won't be foolish enough to reject the punishment and appeal. But as Edwin revels in his scheme, Theo, with a dead serious face, says, "I want to appeal." Silence falls. All 4 of them are shocked, their mouths hanging open. Edwin flashes a creepy, disgusting smile, struggling to contain his laughter. Holding his face, he thinks, Now it'll be easy to crush Theo completely. But then Edwin grows slightly upset and asks, does he even know what an appeal means? Theo's eyes flash as he explains that in the strong and proud Ragnar's clan, appealing means war. Theo knows that this light punishment is only because of Julius. There's no way an incident like this would usually be brushed off with just 3 months prohibition. But Theo has no intention of accepting any punishment, no matter how small. With a creepy smile, Theo declares, in the end, only victory speaks the truth. The hall falls silent in shock, and the system notifies Theo that the main quest has begun. Meanwhile, the scene shifts, and we see Edwin and Remy brutally killing someone. Remy tells Edwin that as Theo had advised, they'd been hiding right here. In Remy's hand, there's a mysterious box, as he says, with this proof, Camellia Palace is screwed. On the other hand, Edwin, wearing his creepy smile, is thinking that Theo is the one who's screwed. After that, we see Ulf Heng asking Theo to confirm, is Theo really taking him to war over an issue that could be solved with a 3-month prohibition? Ulf Heng's tone drips with disdain as he sneers. Theo's so arrogant! Does he think he can stand against all 15 clans alone? Theo remains unfazed and explains that in situations with a huge power gap like this, he doesn't need to face every clan. Typically, appeals mean deciding winners and losers through war. But when a full-on war isn't practical due to overwhelming odds, each side sends a representative to fight in a 1v1 sword duel. This is a proxy battle, and in this case, Theo himself will be the representative for the defendant. The hall goes silent as Theo adds with a smirk that Axion will likely represent the Camellia Palace, making this a battle between him and Axion. Julius, watching Theo, chuckles to himself, thinking if that's the case, Theo's got no chance. Why is he pushing for this? At this point, Edwin feels disappointed. If Theo thinks that Julius or Elwyn will step in to save him, he's making a grave mistake. Meanwhile, Theo calmly confirms, saying that by the rules, if he or Axion win in the 1v1 duel, the problem can be resolved once and for all. Silence fills the room. Edwin's smirk grows, convinced Theo's a helpless fool. Even if Theo has gained power, he's still an insect in front of Axion. Edwin's plan is set. Axion will kill Theo in this duel, finishing him for good. But before Edwin can savor the thought, a deep, threatening voice booms from the back of the hall. I thought you were a quiet kid. The voice is so overwhelming, all the elders freeze in fear. Then another commanding voice speaks. You've changed a lot since I last saw you, my son. The doors open, revealing Theo's father, Kale, the current clan head of Ragnar. His eyes are glowing red, fierce like a bloodthirsty beast. Towering at nearly 10 feet tall, Kale enters, and every elder bows immediately. Theo quickly bows as well. Just then, Theo receives a system notification. Take over Camellia Palace and uncover its secret. But before he can process it, his father, Kale, is right in front of him. Theo's mind races. Why is Dad here now? Kale stands in front of Theo and orders him to stand. Theo rises, and Kale, his tone deadly serious, says he heard about Theo's situation by chance, heard that Theo wants to settle things with Axion through a proxy battle. Theo, nervous but steady, confirms it's true. After a moment, Kale says, the more skilled and strong you've become, Theo, the more impossible it will be to win against Axion. With a dead serious face, Kale asks, who were you planning to select as your proxy for this battle? Theo immediately realizes this is a test. He meets his father's gaze and says, no one is going to stand against me. I plan to fight Axion alone. Kale looks at him, assessing. Then with a steady voice, Kale tells Theo that in his current state, he'll definitely lose. But Theo's face remains steadfast, and he replies, how can you be so sure without even seeing me try? He raises his voice proudly, saying, even if I am forced to bend, I will not lower myself willingly. Kale stares at his son, then bursts into laughter. The sound echoes through the hall. Turning to the elders, Kale booms, did you all hear my son's words? Even if forced to bend, he will not lower himself willingly. With pride in his voice, Kale declares, there is no better way to describe a Ragnar than this. Turning back to Theo, he adds, Theo, your attitude has truly satisfied me. Theo thanks his dad, but deep inside he's thinking this was never about fighting Axion. No, he's got Elwyn and Remy working on the real mission. If they pull it off, Theo can use that info to capture Camellia Palace before the proxy battle even begins. He's aiming to win this fight before it starts. But then, Kale says something that catches Theo completely off guard. Kale, as the master of Ragnar, tells Theo he's giving him another chance. Kale wants to test him. A single slash from Kale himself. If Theo can take that one strike, Kale promises to drop all charges against him. Kale turns, motioning for Theo to follow, leaving Theo surprised and a bit rattled. Meanwhile, Edwin is furious. He shouts at Kale, saying this is impossible. Testing Theo with a strike from the clan head is as good as granting him approval. And if, by some wild chance, Theo survives, even though Edwin's certain that trashy bastard Theo can't, if Theo does survive, he'll have the clan head's approval. That would make capturing Camellia Palace or Rose Palace impossible. Edwin tries to speak up, suggesting they have a proxy battle instead, but Kale cuts him off with a cold, threatening tone, saying just 2 words. "Squire Dragon, shut up!" Edwin falls silent, knowing one wrong word and he'd be dead right then and there. Kale's gaze shifts to Julius, who's been quietly laughing in the background. Kale raises an eyebrow, asking what Julius finds so funny. Julius explains it's just, after so long, he's seeing Kale actually show interest in his own child, and that makes him laugh. Kale scoffs, calling it nonsense and ordering everyone to stop wasting time and head outside. Turning to Theo, Kale asks if he's ready to accept this trial. Theo hesitates, wondering if he can withstand a single strike from his dad. He knows his plan is solid without it. There's no need to accept Kale's trial, but this is an opportunity Theo can't let slip by. He starts laughing, then bows his head and accepts, but with a condition. Theo tells Kale, "This trial? It's unfair. In a proxy battle, I'd only be facing Axion, but a single strike from you? That's 10 times harder." Kale's expression doesn't change as he asks what Theo wants. Theo looks over at Edwin, a smirk playing on his lips, and says, "I want Camellia Palace." The look on Edwin's face is priceless. He's so angry he could practically explode right there, like he's gonna die from the rage. Seeing this, all the elders are shocked. The way Theo's standing there, trying to strike a deal with the clan head, confident as ever. Ulfheng is fuming, watching this half-blooded little shit talk so casually to the clan head. He's sure Kale won't agree to Theo's demands, but then, in a twist that shocks them all, Kale agrees. He even says that if Theo's aiming to be a true successor, he needs this level of ambition, right? Theo glances at Edwin, smirking, and asks if he's got any problems with it. Edwin, keeping his cool, replies that all 6 clans are owned by Kale anyway, so if he gives one to Theo, it won't make a difference. Kale turns back, telling Theo to follow him. He's going to test Theo's true talent today. The scene shifts to the training ground, and every dragon in the clan has gathered to watch. Edwin's tense, a sick feeling gnawing at him. He knows the trap he'd set to take down Theo has somehow become a platform to elevate him. He keeps telling himself there's no reason to panic. Even if the kid's gotten stronger, there's no way he can survive a strike from the clan head, a feat that even the best high-ranked swordsman would struggle with. Theo's gonna die here. He has to die here. On the other side, Theo's standing there with a sly grin, fully aware of what Edwin's hoping for, but it's not gonna happen. Thanks to the tutorial reward, Theo's got a serious edge. He'd use that experience to level up by 5 points, putting it all into strength. But Kale notices and questions if Theo's taken any illegal strength or mana potions. Kale says Theo's strength seems higher than expected, but doesn't look like it's due to potions. Theo's a little nervous. None of the other elders even noticed his power-up. But his dad? Dad's got an eye for it. Blood really does know blood. Finally, the battle begins. Kale stands in front of Theo like a 20-foot-tall mountain. Kale asks if he's ready. Theo nods, bracing himself, and then, boom! Kale releases his bloodthirsty aura. It's so intense, Theo can barely keep himself standing. His whole body is shaking. Slowly, Kale moves closer, telling Theo he's impressed he's still conscious. But inside, Theo's laughing. He's banked all those experience points into pure strength, boosting it 3-fold. At this point, Theo's level is 7. Strength 52, Vitality 17, Intelligence 16, Dexterity 16, and Magic Power 195. Theo's confident he can withstand a single strike from his dad. Or can he? In a flash, Kale's in front of him, raising his sword with brute force, aiming it to the sky, then slashes down in one swift strike. That slash is so powerful, it feels like the earth itself could be split in 2. Edwin and the elders are certain that Theo's death is a done deal, but in Theo's mind, it's slow motion. He sees the blade coming, then, bam! The impact lands. The entire training ground crumbles with a massive explosion. Dust clears, and there stands Theo like a statue, frozen in place. Kale turns, smirking, and says it's been years since he's seen such a decent, useful son. Meanwhile, Theo's almost half unconscious, barely holding on. Suddenly, his sword shatters. Yet Theo? He's unscathed. He blocked his dad's strike. Seeing this, Edwin is struck with fear, worry flashing across his face. On the other hand, Julius starts laughing loudly. With that, Cale declares that the trial is over. Theo is informed he's completed the emergency quest, survive a single strike from Cale. For that, Theo gains 2 rewards: an inventory and a mysterious blue key. The scene shifts, and we see Theo injured, slowly opening his eyes. The first thing he sees is his mom sitting next to him, holding his hand, her face filled with worry and concern. The moment she sees his eyes open, she grips his hand tighter, tears spilling down as she starts crying loudly. For almost an hour, she scolds him, her words pouring out in a frantic rush. She's saying, does Theo have any idea how terrified she was when she heard that he'd been struck by the clan head's sword? Theo's mom anxiously checks his body, searching for injuries, but before the moment can get too mushy, Julius enters, breaking the emotional scene. He informs Theo that, by order of the clan head, Emily, Edwin, and all of Edwin's servants have been removed from Camellia Palace. And now? This place belongs to Theo. Theo realizes that the room he's resting in is actually Camellia Palace itself. The system then notifies him that he's officially acquired Camellia Palace. And now he's got a new mission: uncover the secret of Camellia Palace. The scene shifts outside, where Emily is absolutely furious. He's shouting at his servants, demanding to know why he's been thrown out of his own palace. He's stomping on the ground in frustration. Meanwhile, Edwin is speaking to Axion, his face filled with a dead-serious, bloodthirsty glare. He's planning to take Theo's arm during the awakening ceremony, but Edwin quickly cuts off Axion's words, correcting him. Not his arm. Edwin wants Theo's head. With a deadly look, he tells Axion that, no matter what, he has to take Theo's head. Axion pauses, saying nothing. At that moment, you almost get the sense that Axion isn't all bad. Maybe he's only like this because of his family's twisted influence. Then the scene shifts again, and we see Theo roaming around Camellia Palace, happy and satisfied. On top of that, he's acquired a strange new ability called Inventory, which lets him store all kinds of things. Theo's already stocked up on apples, food, and a bunch of swords in there. He still doesn't understand how any of this is possible, but honestly, he doesn't care. This inventory is coming in real handy. Theo then takes out the blue key and stands in front of a mysterious door. He remembers the blue key he got during the meeting at the Scaled Dragon Society, and he's sure this key will open the door before him. After that, Theo unlocks the mysterious door with the key. As soon as it swings open, a dungeon appears before him. The system immediately notifies Theo. He's discovered a dungeon for the first time, and as a reward, all experience earned inside will be doubled. Theo's mind races, thinking, what kind of cave is this? How did it even end up inside Camellia Palace? But he doesn't waste much time overthinking. He heads inside, though he decides not to go in empty-handed. So Theo packs up every sword in Camellia Palace, stuffing them all into his inventory. He even grabs a shield. All geared up, he finally steps into the cave. After a while, we see Theo moving further into the cave. Suddenly, a bloodthirsty, drooling, white silver wolf appears right in front of him. Theo remembers fighting monsters before out beyond the wall, but this one, it's different. There's something strange about it. But before Theo can process it, the silver wolf charges. Theo raises his shield, blocking the bite just in time, then tries to strike with his sword. But the wolf dodges. Rising on its haunches, baring its sharp teeth, it lunges at Theo again. Theo braces himself, attacking the white wolf, but its hide is so thick his strike barely leaves a scratch. Theo realizes that half-hearted attacks won't be enough here. This isn't just any ordinary wolf. Determined, Theo dashes toward the wolf again, thinking if he could only replicate that ray of light from when his father struck him. He tries to recall that single slash, that pure white arc, and attempts to mimic it. But as he swings, his speed is too slow, and the wolf dodges again. Frustrated, Theo drops his shield, even though it lowers his defense. With intense concentration, he swings another single slash, this time hitting the silver wolf, injuring its left eye. Seeing the blood, Theo's excited, but the silver wolf is furious. It leaps at Theo, and the two of them start brawling. The scene shifts, and we're told 2 months have passed. Back at training ground number 4, Theo's followers are all wondering where he's gone. Drea tells them Theo is still in selection training, and that's why he hasn't come out. A cocky bastard named Henry sneers, taunting Drea, saying, "When is this good-for-nothing young master gonna show up?" He's an apprentice from Plum Blossom Palace and mocks everyone, questioning if the rumors about Theo surviving a strike from the clan head are even true, laughing that Theo's probably been hiding for 2 months. But before he can finish, Drea punches him hard, sending him flying. Henry's buddies from Plum Blossom get angry, and on the other side, Drea and Theo's followers are just as pissed, ready to throw down. Just as the tension's about to explode, the entire ground freezes. Both groups go silent. Standing between them, holding a sword, is an elegant lady. Everyone's stunned, wondering when she appeared. They didn't even notice her approach. This is none other than Ray Ragnar, one of the 4 hounds. And she's not alone. Halkus, a man with a body like a 10-foot mountain, is with her. He's also one of the 4 hounds of the north. Everyone's stunned, but Halkus immediately demands, "Where's Luster Dragon?" Everyone's confused. Who the hell is Luster Dragon? Seeing their blank faces, Halkus gets even more pissed, drawing his sword. "Are you all deaf?" he shouts, repeating, "Where's Luster Dragon, the master of this training ground?" That's when we learn Theo's new nickname is Luster Dragon. Halkus declares he's come to spar with Theo. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Theo, who's completely exhausted and sweating heavily. His clothes are torn, his sword is shattered, and the system notifies him of a level up. Multiple notifications ping, letting him know he's leveled up after hunting 170 demonic beasts. We see Theo's hair has grown out, and he's seated like a master among a pile of demonic wolves' corpses with broken swords scattered around him. Then we see Theo's current stats. Level: 15 strength, 91 vitality, 20 intelligence, 19 dexterity, 25 magic power, 198 a few times, but this mysterious potion saved him. After that, we come to know that this is a beginner's healing potion, which was given to Theo as a reward. After drinking this, Theo's health and wounds will recover by 10. Because of this, even after being injured so much, Theo has been stuck in this dungeon for 2 months. Theo explains that it was pretty rough at the start, but it got easier as Theo leveled up. But time flies for sure. 2 months have already passed, and Theo didn't realize. After that, Theo sees in the system notification that he had to kill 171 of the dungeon's monsters, out of which only 1 is left. Theo sees a staircase and says that surely the only monster left will be the dungeon's boss. Theo slowly goes up the staircase, and the system notifies Theo that he has reached the 5th floor of the dungeon. Theo has a broken sword in his hand. He throws away the broken sword and says that this sword is of no use now. After that, finally, Theo takes out a new sharp sword. Because by this moment, Theo's entire sword was broken. This is the only sword that was left. This sword was a ceremonial sword that Theo got from his mother as a birthday present. After that, Theo remembers his past life. In his past life, there was a lot of friction between Theo and his mom before the awakening ceremony. Theo's mom gave this sword to him as a birthday gift in his past life, but because Theo was so upset, he threw this sword in her room and said that this is a useless sword. But now that Theo is taking a closer look at this sword, it's looking pretty good. Theo can feel a mysterious aura coming from this sword. 2 months ago, when Theo's birthday came in his past life, Theo was very excited with his servant and brought a lot of gifts and swords to Theo. But on the other hand, Theo shouts at his mom in anger. Theo says that the awakening ceremony is just around the corner and he doesn't have time to celebrate his birthday. Theo can't waste his time celebrating his birthday. He gives his mom a disgusted look and says that she should know that good equipment doesn't change one's bloodline. He tells his mom to go away from his sight. In his past life, he treated his mom very harshly. He regretted it a lot later. But in this life, Theo swears that he will give his mom a lot of happiness. Theo will not repeat the same mistake of his previous life. He takes his mom's sword and enters the dungeon boss's room. As soon as he enters the dungeon boss's room, Theo is surprised because a very big dragon was sleeping in front of his eyes. At first, Theo thinks it's a dragon, but after looking closely, he realizes that it's just a lizard drake. That lizard drake was so big that Theo just looked like an insect in front of him. Theo thinks that Ragnar is said to be the descendant of a dragon, and the final boss of this weird quest is a lizard drake, which is also a kind of dragon. Is this merely a coincidence? Theo doesn't know if it's a coincidence or not, but he was sure of one thing. He needs to kill this thing to clear this quest and become strong. With that, Theo comes to his battle position. He thinks, will he really be able to defeat this huge dragon? Theo gets serious and thinks, let's give the single slash technique that he has been trying for the past 2 months. Theo has been practicing his dad's single slash for 2 months, and after so much practice, he is finally able to use the single slash. Theo says that he might not be on par with his father's dragon flash, but if he utilizes his dragon heart to the maximum, he should be able to seriously wound this dragon. After saying this, Theo uses his single slash to break the dragon's right eye, and the dragon starts screaming and bleeding, and the dragon wakes up. The dragon tries to kill Theo with his tail, but Theo dodges his attack. The dragon wakes up. His right eye is no longer there. The dragon is very angry and furious, and he screams at Theo. Theo, on the other hand, sees that he was hoping to pierce the dragon's brain, but it seems his attack didn't reach that far. But Theo realizes that if he tries a little harder, he can do it. With that, Theo and the dragon start an intense battle. But before Theo could do much, the dragon uses a strange ability. The dragon screams loudly, and Theo froze on the ground. Theo's body stands in the same place like a statue, and the dragon, with a single kick, shoots Theo into the distance. Theo hits a wall from afar. Theo starts bleeding. 1 or 2 of Theo's bones break, and Theo thinks that this boss is not to be messed with. Theo had a really bad feeling if he let this fight drag on any longer. Theo drinks a red healing potion. He heals and comes back to fight the dragon. Theo knows the weakness of a dragon. The skin of the dragon is very hard, but there's a place on the dragon's body where a scale has come off. That was his weak point. Theo instantly dashes. He pierces his sword into the slightly protruding area, causing the dragon to scream very loudly. Theo realizes that his attack is working. Theo starts laughing with a creepy, psychopathic smile, and their battle continues. On the other hand, the scene shifts, and we see Theo's group is bewildered. Their swords are frozen. They stand there quietly. They're watching the argument between Hulkus and Ray. Hulkus is screaming loudly, telling Ray that Theo needs to fight him first. On the other hand, Ray is saying that the loser should stay out of it. Hearing this, Hulkus gets very angry and says that Ray defeated Hulkus 3 years ago, and in these 3 years, Hulkus has improved his skills by working hard day and night. And 3 years is more than enough time to close the gap. But Ray says only one word: loser. Hearing this, Hulkus was really pissed off. He takes out his huge sword and says, "Let's have another duel, and the winner will face Theo." Saying this, Hulkus attacks Ray with his huge sword. But Ray, elegantly with a single swift move, blocks the attack. Seeing this, everyone is shocked. People of Plum Blossom and Theo's friends, too. They don't understand what's going on. But before their battle could go any further, Remy comes between them. He blocks both their attacks and says that if they want to brawl, they should go somewhere else, because this is the domain of young Master Theo, and he will not allow these two to cause trouble while the Master is away. But Hulkus doesn't pay attention to what Remy says. Hulkus gets very happy to see Remy, and says that he didn't even see that Remy was here, and that he wants to duel with Remy. Remy tries to say that he has heard what Hulkus just said, but before they could go any further, Remy feels an overwhelmingly tense, deadly, bloodthirsty aura. Not just Remy, but Ray and Hulkus feel this too. The whole training ground is enveloped in a strange red aura, and they have a problem standing still. Remy turns back, thinking in a serious tone, "What is this killing intent?" All three turn back, and what do we see? This overwhelmingly intense pressure is none other than Theo. We see Theo like a mad, crazy beast ready to tear his opponent apart. Well, it seems that Theo has unlocked Conqueror's Haki. After that, we're shown a flashback where Theo stands on top of the dead lesser drake he's just killed. As soon as Theo takes down the beast, the system notifies him, congratulating him. That lesser drake was so dangerous it almost killed him. Theo's exhausted and falls asleep right there on the drake's dead body. Lucky for him, he managed to take it down by targeting the scale. It was his only chance. Without that weak spot, there's no way he'd have beaten it. Then the system chimes in again, notifying Theo that because of defeating the lesser drake, he's earned the lesser drake's tooth and lesser drake's claws. When Theo checks out his new items, the system explains that these are materials for enchantments or weapon crafting. Theo's unsure what to do with them, so he stashes them in his inventory. Right then, though, Theo realizes he's got a problem. His mom's birthday gift sword is almost broken, and he knows he'll have to go home and fix it fast. If she sees it like this, she'll feel really bad. Just then, the system notifies Theo again, letting him know he's unlocked a new skill, Lesser Drake Fire. It's a degrade ability, and he's only mastered 1% of it, but once used, Theo will unleash a deadly killing intent. With its intense pressure, it'll freeze everyone in their tracks who's weaker than him. Seeing this, Theo's over the moon with excitement. This is the same ability his father used on him, a skill he'd only heard about, one he thought only the chosen ones could wield. He never imagined he'd get the chance to try it himself. Theo packs up all his equipment in his inventory, eager to get home, rest up, and test out his new ability. Finally, he comes out of the dungeon, and as soon as he steps out, the system notifies him again. He's completed the first scenario quest. Because of this, Theo is due a reward. Theo sees a strange dragon eye appear, and the system explains that it's a nest compass. With this compass, he'll be able to reach the next dungeon. Theo stares at the compass, studying it intensely, wondering if it'll lead him to his next quest. But for now, he stores the dragon eye in his inventory, muttering that he's so tired he could sleep for 10 days straight. He heads to his room. Just as he gets there, a servant shouts for him, saying something urgent has happened. Theo, exhausted, brushes it off, and the servant looks at him, shocked, asking what happened to him. Theo casually replies that he's just been training to relax, telling them not to worry. The servant informs Theo there's a brawl happening in training ground number 4 right now. Back to the present. Theo, now fully in his element, walks toward Remy and Ray. Theo's not even aware he's radiating such an intense aura around him. He's unconsciously tapped into Lisa's fear skill, and without realizing it, he mutters in frustration, "Get lost! I need to rest!" His haki intensifies, and all the weak-hearted people nearby fall unconscious, foam forming at their mouths. He's leaving such an intense killing intent that even Hulkus was right about him. Hulkus knew Theo would be a fun match. Grinning, Hulkus dashes toward Theo with his huge sword, declaring that Theo is his, and that they'll see who's stronger here. With that, Hulkus slashes at Theo, but Theo just casually lifts his sword to block the attack, and Hulkus is thrown back a good distance. Seeing this, both Remy and Ray are shocked. Even Hulkus, midair, is stunned. At that moment, Hulkus finally lands on the ground, his face contorted with fury. Then, we learn more about Hulkus. He's always been considered the weakest among the 4 hounds of the North because he's not that smart. But as a member of the Lank clan, he's unmatched in raw strength among the 4 hounds. Hulkus jumps in the air and attacks Theo with all his strength, shouting, "Try blocking this!" Theo readies his sword and casually blocks Hulkus's strike, then hits a powerful slash. The force is so immense that Hulkus's stomach is almost cut in half. Hulkus collapses, unconscious, blood pouring from his wound. The broken pieces of his massive sword remain stuck in the training ground, while Hulkus lies there, unconscious. Theo stands there, surprised, realizing he must have swung with his full strength without meaning to. He thinks to himself, good thing it was Hulkus on the receiving end. He's known for being tough. If it was anyone else, I'd have sliced him clean in 2. Seeing this, everyone is surprised, and the next moment, they all start cheering for Theo. They shout, saying that young Master Theo defeated Hulkus in a single swing. Theo took down one of the 4 hounds with just 1 strike. Theo tries to calm them down, but before he can, he hears a crackling sound. Suddenly, Theo's mom's sword snaps into 2 pieces. Seeing this, Theo feels a surge of disappointment. His mother's sword, broken. On the other hand, the crowd starts shouting that Theo took Hulkus's attack and didn't even get a scratch, only his sword broke. They keep cheering for Theo. Meanwhile, Remy and Ray are both shocked. Then, we're shown a flashback of Ray's backstory. Almost 10 years ago, Theo met Ray for the first time. They were just kids then. Ray was roaming around in the freezing cold without any proper clothes. Theo, seeing this, asks, "Why are you walking around like this in the cold? Ain't it freezing?" But Ray says nothing, just stands there, shivering. Without hesitation, Theo takes off his red scarf and wraps it around Ray, saying, "One shouldn't be out in the cold like that, they'll catch a chill." With a warm, kind smile, Theo takes Ray's hand and brings her to his house, saying, "It's cold outside. Come with me. I'll get you something warm to eat." Back to the present, Ray watches Theo, realizing he's finally become strong. Now no one will bully him. A gentle, warm smile crosses Ray's face, and after a moment, she turns and walks away. Remy, watching this, is confused, wondering if Ray really just smiled at Theo. Later that evening, at Camellia Palace, Theo is wearing a party cap, surrounded by servants holding crackers in celebration. They're congratulating him, and a big banner reads, congratulations to Theo, now known by his new title, Luster Tiger. The servants are thrilled, saying Theo's hard work has finally paid off. They cheer him on, urging him to keep up the momentum until the awakening ceremony. Just then, Theo's mom walks in and places a huge plate of meat on the table. Before Theo can react, she starts piling meat onto his plate one after another, so fast that he can barely breathe. She explains, "This is special meat. It'll increase your strength." It's meat from a molluscous monster, a rare creature found only in the Indra Sea. Theo tries to say something, but his mom doesn't listen. She just keeps feeding him. Theo, feeling a mix of warmth and excitement, doesn't protest. He just keeps eating, a contented smile on his face. Theo's mom, with a kind smile, tells him to say. Watching her care for him like this, Theo feels warm-hearted, remembering how badly he treated her in his past life, a mistake he swears not to repeat. With a bittersweet smile, he finishes his meal and tells her, "It was really delicious." A little while later, Theo shows his mom her broken sword. Seeing this, she screams in shock, "What in the name of—" But instead of getting mad at Theo, she keeps her frustration in check. Theo stands there, bloated from the feast, looking a bit like a Santa Claus after eating so much. He explains that the sword broke during training, apologizing, knowing how precious it was since it was a birthday gift from her. But before Theo can finish, his mom starts shouting, furious. She curses the person who swore this sword was made of steel, saying, "They said it's impossible to break, so how did this happen?" Hearing this, Theo is also a little surprised, as white snow steel is known to be a rare material that's as flexible as wood, but as hard as steel. It's a plant that grows by feeding on iron, highly valued because of its unique properties. Theo had always felt a strange aura from the sword, but he hadn't realized just how valuable it truly was. He thinks back, regretting that he threw away such a precious gift in his past life. But Theo's mom doesn't stop there. She insists it's not okay. She's determined to confront the person who made the sword and demand an explanation, saying she won't settle for anything less than a perfect sword for her son this time. Theo tries to tell her it's unnecessary, that he can just use a normal sword, but she shuts him down, explaining that now people are finally beginning to see his true worth. Theo has to be prepared for whatever's coming, especially with the awakening ceremony only a week away. She adds, "I can't let you go to the ceremony empty-handed now, can I?" With a smirk, she asks Theo to follow her. Theo, a bit confused, asks where they're going. With a grin, she replies, "The best workshop in all of Winterterra, the Baski Workshop." After that, we arrive at the Baski Workshop. Only 2 people in the entire Ragnar clan even know about this place. And now, Theo stands in front of the master craftsman with his mom right beside him. This master, none other than the demon craftsman Curson. Well, Theo had been hoping for a thick mommy-type blacksmith, but hey, an elf works too. Curson, Theo, and Celsi all look surprised to see Theo's mom there. Curson smirks and says, well, look who's come by." Theo, on the other hand, just stands there totally shocked, thinking he never expected he'd get to meet such a high-status craftsman. He wonders how in the world his mom knows the demon craftsman. Had she known all along? Then we see Celsi's face turn angry as she scolds Curson, demanding why she still hasn't quit smoking. Just then, Celsi calls Curson, "Mother!" and Theo's eyes widen in shock. Meanwhile, Curson looks back at Celsi and with a smirk says, "Who's this mother you're calling? I'm nobody's mom," and adds that she's just a craftsman, while Celsi is just a customer. She reminds her that the parent-child relationship ended the day she ran away from here. Theo stands there, even more shocked now. All his life, he thought his mom was an orphan with no family left. But here he is, staring at a high elf, Curson, the same person who's apparently Celsi's mother. Theo can't help but get a little excited, thinking, wait, does this mean I'm a quarter elf? He laughs to himself, thinking that might explain his dashing looks. Curson breaks the silence, asking Celsi, "So, dear customer, why have you come here?" Celsi, angry, throws the sword toward Curson, saying it's because of this defective sword. Curson catches it, confused, asking what defective sword she's talking about. She demands to know how she could call a sword she personally forged defective, but the second Curson pulls the sword from its sheath, her face goes pale, surprised and shocked. She's frozen in place. Celsi stands there with a smug look, saying, "If this sword isn't defective, then how did it break so easily?" Meanwhile, Theo, still staring at his own hands, marvels at the thought of being part elf. Curson's expression turns serious, and she asks Celsi, "Who in the world wielded this sword?" With a hint of pride, Celsi responds, "My son, obviously. Who else?" Kursen's eyebrows shoot up, asking if she means that delicate boy standing behind her. Celsi's face hardens, and she tells Kursen to watch her mouth because Theo is a genius who's going to rule Ragnar one day. Theo, polite as ever, steps forward and introduces himself, saying it's an honor to meet the famous master of the workshop. Kursen, still upset, puffs on her cigar and looks Theo up and down, asking again, "So, did you wield this sword?" Theo, unfazed, responds, "Of course." Celsi chimes in, once again insisting the sword is defective. She's been saying it all along, but Kursen just takes a long drag of her cigar, sighs, and says, "This is going to be a long conversation." She gestures for them to follow her, and the scene shifts as Theo and Celsi trail after Kursen. Theo glances at his mom and asks, "Why have you never told me about this demon craftsman, and how are you even related to him?" His mom replies, saying, "Kursen is my mother." Theo is stunned, asking why she never mentioned it before. Celsi explains that her relationship with Kursen hasn't been good for many years, and she never had the chance to tell him about it. She continues explaining that although it was only for 6 months, Kursen had been her foster mother and took care of her. Theo's excitement dims a little as he realizes Celsi isn't Kursen's biological daughter, just a foster daughter. Celsi goes on to say that her mother just loves anything she considers beautiful, whether it's jewelry, music, theater, or even people like Celsi. That's why Kursen took Celsi in as her foster daughter. That means she must have really liked Celsi. Hearing this, Kursen gets a bit annoyed. Actually, Celsi jokes that anything Kursen likes, she just takes for himself. Kursen doesn't find it funny, though, and we can see that a good bond is forming between the mother and daughter, even if they don't admit it. After this, Theo asks his mom why she left this place and went to Ragnar. But before Celsi can answer, Kursen butts in, saying, "One day she ran off without a word, leaving a note that said she wanted to be the head wife of the Ragnar clan." Kursen rolls his eyes, muttering that he still can't believe Celsi would willingly choose such a miserable place. "What a foolish child," she says, and adds, she is even surprised her daughter is still alive in that heartless place. Celsi jumps in, explaining that the clan's head was handsome, dashing, and manly, and he loved her dearly. That's why she left. But Kursen scoffs, saying, "Despite running away, she came crawling back last year, begging me to forge a sword for her son." She chuckles, saying she never seen such shamelessness. Celsi gets a bit shy, and the two start bickering. Seeing this, Theo gives a warm smile. He's happy to see this bond between his mom and her mother. But then he can't help but wonder why Kursen didn't help Celsi in his past life if she cares so much. He even curses himself, realizing he never really learned anything about his own mother back then. "What an ungrateful son I was," he thinks bitterly. Finally, Kursen leads Theo to a huge door. Celsi's confused, wondering why she brought them here. She closes her eyes, muttering to Kursen, "Please give Theo a good sword this time." But before she can finish, Kursen pulls Theo inside. Once they're in, Kursen's face turns deadly serious. In a deep, frank tone, she asks, "I'll ask you straight. Do you have a relic of the primordial dragon?" Hearing this, Theo is utterly confused. He's never heard of any relic like that. Celsi's face darkens as she pulls out her mother's sword, looking close to tears. She demands, "If Theo doesn't have a relic, then how on earth did this sword end up in such a state? I poured my heart and soul into forging this baby. There's no way it could break against anything but a relic." Theo, still clueless, apologizes, explaining he broke the sword while fighting a lesser drake. He's completely lost about what relic Kursen is talking about. Kursen shakes her head and sighs. "Forget it. It might be faster to just show you than to keep talking nonsense." After that, Kursen leads them to a strange box, bound tightly with chain. She asks Theo, "Can you see any light coming out of it?" Theo stares at the box and, to his surprise, sees a faint blue glow, just like in his system quests. Seeing Theo's reaction, Kursen's eyes widen. She knows Theo can actually see something in this box. Kursen explains, "This is just an ordinary box to me. I've been trying to open it for the past 50 years, but it's always stayed locked. But if you truly have a relic, you might be able to open it." He goes on to explain that a long, long time ago, during the Age of Myths, the primordial dragon removed one of its fangs and forged a blade from it. That blade, the white moonlight blade, is kept inside this very box. And if Theo can break the seal, Kursen will give him the blade. But there's a warning. Kursen tells Theo that in the process of breaking the seal, he could lose his life. "So," Kursen asks, "are you ready?" Theo just gives a confident smile, declaring, "That sword is mine." With that, a new quest begins, to acquire the White Moonlight Blade. Then, Theo explains that the Moonlight Blade was once wielded by the Black Dragon, one of the 9 elders of the Ragnar clan. Very few people knew what the sword actually looked like, because almost everyone who'd seen or even spoken of it either disappeared or ended up dead. However, in his previous life, Theo had met Black Dragon. When Black Dragon saw Theo, he was surprised that Theo could actually see the true form of the Moonlight Blade. Black Dragon himself was a handsome, white-haired man with a massive black eagle standing behind him. This eagle? That was the true form of the sword, visible only to Black Dragon. But for reasons unknown, Black Dragon didn't kill Theo, and Theo knew he'd meet Black Dragon again in 4 years, which meant the Moonlight Blade had been with Curson for quite a long time. Slowly, Theo steps up to the mysterious box and pulls out his blue key. Curson, watching closely, is shocked to see it. As soon as Theo inserts the blue key into the box's keyhole, a bright light erupts from the box, and all the chains begin to unlock. A dark, swirling aura escapes the box and pulls Theo inside. Darkness fills Theo's vision, and when he opens his eyes, he finds himself in Rose Palace, engulfed in flames. He's held by the neck, and in front of him lies his mother's dead body. A deep voice echoes from behind, asking if Theo wants revenge, if he desires power. Theo feels the black eagle looming behind him, but suddenly, before it can harm him, Theo grabs the black eagle by the face, catching it completely off guard. Turning around casually, Theo taunts, "Try to control someone's mind by using their desire for power, huh? Guess there's a reason they call you a monster." The black eagle grows angry, furious that a human dared to touch him. But Theo smirks and explains, "I've already conquered the despair you just tried to show me. You really think I'd be tempted by your power when I already have a quest?" The black eagle's confused, having no idea what quest Theo's talking about. Theo continues, noting how different this eagle is from the griffin in his memory. Back then, the griffin had been over 10 meters tall. Now this griffin is almost eye level with Theo. Theo raises his fist to the sky and shouts, "Maybe it's because you've been sealed so long." Then with a wicked grin, Theo says to the griffin, "You're mine now, White Moonlight Sword." The griffin tries to backpedal, pleading, "Sir, let's talk this out like civilized beings." But before it can finish, Theo smashes it with a powerful punch. Meanwhile, back in reality, Theo lies unconscious, the Moonlight Sword clutched tightly in his hand. Celsi is terrified, watching Theo's lifeless form, tears streaming down her face as she curses Curson. "If anything happens to Theo, I'll never forgive you, Curson." Curson, on the other hand, is observing Theo carefully, noticing a strange black aura radiating from his body, something she has never seen or heard of before. She had assumed that since Theo already possessed a relic, he'd be okay. But Celsi is still beside herself, shouting, "If something terrible happens to my son, I'll never, ever forgive you." Curson, despite herself, looks a bit tense. Then all of a sudden, Theo starts shivering. That black aura surges from his body, swirling like a tornado. His mom's worry intensifies, and she calls out to him, and suddenly, Theo's eyes snap open. As soon as Theo opens his eyes, Celsi grabs him, crying loudly. Theo sees his mom sobbing and says, "Seems I've worried you, Mom. I'm fine. No need to be worried." Seeing Theo alive, Curson finally takes a breath of relief. Just then, the system notifies Theo that he's acquired the White Moonlight Sword. Theo thinks he got lucky. The Griffin was easier to defeat since it had just been UN sealed, and the psychological warfare the Griffin tried didn't work on him. The system then notifies Theo that because he absorbed some of the Moonlight Sword's magic power, his magic power has increased by 30. Now that his magic has surpassed 200, Theo has gained divinity. Theo feels power surging inside him like a volcano. Because of this divinity, his body's become even more enchanted. He'll recover magic power every second at a rate of 1.5. He sighs, thinking it's a shame he can't use all this power right away. He'll have to hold back until the awakening ceremony. Then we see Theo's status window. His strength sits at 96. Vitality at 21, intelligence at 20, dexterity at 27, and magic power at 228. But his luck? Still at a miserable -6. Then Curson looks at Theo saying, "Theo, you scared me." Meanwhile, Theo's mom is still crying, but Theo reminds Curson, "You promised, so I'm keeping this sword." Suddenly, Theo's sword starts shaking, Theo wondering if the Moonlight Sword is trying to rebel. But the Curson quickly explains, "It's not that. This sword's been sealed for years, so it's frustrated. After all this time, it's finally out." Curson then places a huge metal plate in front of him, smirking, "Why don't you swing your sword at this wall, Theo?" Theo hesitates, asking, "Are you sure? What if it gets damaged?" But with a sly smile, Curson replies, "No need to worry about useless things. Even with the white moonlight sword, a swing from a brat who hasn't even had their awakening ceremony won't harm the Basque workshop." Theo feels a bit relieved, and with a grin, he thinks, since he can hide his dragon heart anytime, why not take this opportunity to test out the white moonlight sword's full power, as well as his own. Getting excited, Theo decides to pour everything he's got into this swing. Theo takes his battle stance, and as soon as he channels his magic power into the white moonlight, it becomes unshielded. An intense, blinding aura of magic power bursts from Theo. In that instant, Curson realizes she's fucked up. She tries to stop Theo, but it's too late. Theo uses his single flash technique, and with one whoosh, he slices through the thick plate made from a mix of snow-white steel, the strongest steel known, supposedly unbreakable. He doesn't just slice it in two, he splits the entire workshop clean in half. Seeing this, Theo's mom's eyes start to glitter. She can't believe how strong her son has become. On the other hand, Curson looks like her soul just left her body, standing there like a dead person. Curson holds her head and shouts, "There goes my money!" We see Theo has slashed the entire workshop in two. Even Theo is shocked, thinking, "This might be a bit too dangerous. This sword absorbed nearly all of my magic power." Suddenly, Curson is right in front of Theo, pressing her hand against his stomach, trying to sense something. Theo is stunned. He didn't sense her move. With a strange grin, Curson says, "Goodness, there's no magic power left in you. So you really did all this damage just from the blade's sharpness?" Curson studies Theo, muttering, "This kid's a damn genius." Then, with a glint in her eye, she declares, "That is my grandson!" We can practically see dollar signs flashing in her eyes. All Curson can think about now is how to use Theo's talent to rake in more cash. She places a hand on Theo's shoulder and says, "I'll be your sponsor, kid. All you gotta do is wield that sword and show the world what you're made of." She promises Theo that any equipment or tools he needs, she'll supply for free. Meanwhile, Curson is ecstatic, picturing Theo as a living advertisement for her workshop, her eyes gleaming with dollar signs. Theo smiles, thinking, "What a great grandmother I have." But Celsi eyes her mom suspiciously and says, "Mom, I can see the money in your eyes," which startles both Theo and Curson. The scene shifts, and we see Celsi and Theo in their carriage, waving goodbye to Curson. We learn that Theo gave 2 large drake horns as repayment for the damage he caused to the workshop. Curson has no idea where Theo got these legendary drake horns from, but she assumes they're loot he collected while obtaining the relic. Laughing, she heads back into her workshop, thinking proudly, "My daughter raised an incredible son." Just then, a voice from behind says, "It's been a long time." Curson turns, and we see a black crow staring at her with deadly serious eyes. The scene shifts again. It's 5 days until the awakening ceremony, and Theo is sparring with Alvin. By this point, Theo has grown so strong that he's able to hold his ground against Alvin, matching him blow for blow. In fact, Alvin even comments that Theo's swordplay has become sharp and precise, nearly on par with Alvin's own skill. The crowd watching them is in awe, murmuring in disbelief. It's only been half a year since young Master Theo started his intense training, yet he's already powerful enough to push Elwyn back. Elwyn himself can't help but marvel at Theo's progress, thinking, if he awakens his latent power, there'll be no limit to his strength. As they clash swords one last time, Elwyn smiles, realizing that the awakening ceremony will mark the birth of a new monster. Alvin then tells Theo, "You've done a great job. You could even aim to be the king of the awakening ceremony. I'll be rooting for your success." Theo grins and replies, "Thanks, Elwyn. And don't worry, when I'm number 1, I'll mention your name in my victory speech." Alvin, a bit flustered and annoyed, asks, "Why my name?" Hearing this, Theo's followers with sparkling eyes rush forward, begging him to take their names in the speech too. Seeing this, Theo chuckles and says, "Geez, it's tough being popular." And with that, a playful, friendly scuffle breaks out among them, laughter filling the air. Finally, on the day of the awakening ceremony, we arrive at the central headquarters. It's a massive mansion, packed with people from all over the north. Theo steps inside, fully dressed and looking sharp, saying with a grin, "Finally, I've arrived." Theo explains that the awakening ceremony is one of the most important annual events for Ragnar. Every participant is here hoping for a great result, as it's the first chance for any Ragnar swordsman to be truly acknowledged and honored. As he enters, we're shown the colossal stadium. A huge steel pillar standing nearly 100 feet tall looms in the center, making everyone look tiny in comparison. Theo spots Kale, his father, seated in the VIP section, watching the event intently. Theo continues narrating, explaining that every important figure in the Ragnar clan is watching this ceremony, which makes it vital for all the participants. Then we're introduced to the 9 dragons one by one. We first see Julius, the elder dragon, and then we catch a glimpse of a peculiar woman. She is the previous clan head. But wait, how the hell can she be 150 years old with that figure? Even Theo wonders the same. Theo's eyes widen as he sees Hilda, thinking, how the hell can she be 150 years old and look like that? The more he stares, the less she seems anywhere close to her age. The drums begin to beat, signaling the start of the ceremony. An instructor steps up, announcing that the preliminaries will begin shortly. He explains the challenge. Each participant will grab a sword, place it on the ground, and leave a mark on the massive steel wall on the platform. And for those who don't know, the wall is forged from white snow steel, which is almost indestructible. The crowd gasps in surprise. The instructor goes on, explaining that an ordinary steel blade won't even scratch the wall. But if they channel magic power into their attacks, everything changes. That's why this ceremony exists. Holding up a strange black ball, the instructor says, "This is Soma. As soon as the candidates consume it, magic power will start flowing through them." He adds that 1 pill of Soma grants them 10 years' worth of magic power, an elixir to help open their mana hall. He says only by swallowing the Soma and opening their mana hall in the Dante can they hope to cut the white snow steel wall with those shabby swords. The depth of their cut will determine their final score. Then the instructor shouts, "From now on, I'll call each participant's name. They will grab a Soma, pick up a sword, and get on the platform." He calls Theo's name first. Theo, brimming with confidence, steps up in front of the platform. The instructor hands him a Soma, and Theo grabs one of the swords, slowly walking toward the towering steel pillar. At that moment, the system notifies Theo that main quest No. 3 has begun. Theo must come first in the awakening ceremony. The scene shifts to Hilda, who turns to Kale, asking, "Is this the same boy you mentioned?" Kale smiles and nods. "Yes, that's him." Hilda raises an eyebrow, clearly intrigued, and asks, "Has he caught your attention?" Kale chuckles. "Yes, he has. Is he interesting enough for you, Hilda?" Hilda, with the most seductive smile you could imagine, purrs. "Of course, if you're interested, then he must be one to watch." Her smile is practically dangerous as she murmurs, "I'm really going to enjoy watching Theo in this awakening ceremony. And finally, I've got to say, Granny aged like fine wine." Now back to Theo. Theo is stretching his body, holding a normal sword. He feels a mix of nerves and excitement. Finally, he's standing here, ready to face the awakening ceremony. Theo's got confidence in his power, but yeah, there's still a bit of tension in the air. The instructor steps up and tells Theo to eat the Soma. While he's taking it, Theo thinks back. Last time he swallowed the Soma in his previous life, he couldn't control the mana. He ended up severely injuring his Dante, which crippled his ability to use magic for life. But this time, it's going to be different. As soon as Theo swallows the Soma, a surge of mana starts radiating from him. It's so strong that the ground around him starts to shake. The instructor watches, concerned, thinking Theo's mana is about to go out of control. If he can't handle it, there'll be an explosion and Theo's Dante will be destroyed. Inhaling Soma's power takes finesse. You've got to allow the mana hole to settle carefully into the Dante. The more talented a Ragnar is, the more mana they have. And seeing this crazy amount of mana pouring out, the instructor realizes that Theo must be an insanely talented Ragnar. But if Theo can't control it, he'll be crippled for life. The instructor is certain Theo's done for, but suddenly, Theo's mana stabilizes. Almost on the brink of losing control, Theo pulls it back in. He clenches his fists, realizing he's finally mastered his mana hole. Right now, Theo's got a dragon heart in his chest where he can store mana, and he's formed a mana hole in his lower abdomen. He's basically got 2 mana cores now, one in his heart and one in his stomach. Theo can't believe how in his past life he was crippled over this same mana, yet now he's unlocked it so easily. He gets serious, deciding that from here on, he's officially able to use mana, and he's not holding back. Theo channels all his mana into his sword, but he decides not to draw from the Dragon Heart's reserves just yet. He will only use his newly formed mana hall. With a determined face, he raises his sword and slashes with all he's got. The energy in that slash is so intense, it looks like a freaking dragon emerging from his blade. Everyone around him, Ray, Remy, Hulkus, they all feel the intense pressure of Theo's slash. And then, with a massive bam, Theo's slash hits the colossal stone pillar, blowing a huge cut right. Even Axion is shocked, and he's looking pretty pissed off about it. We're shown a distant view. There's a huge gap in that pillar of steel. The instructor, stunned, passes Theo, who descends slowly with a majestic aura. The crowd is in complete shock. They murmur, saying they haven't seen a display like this since young Master Torkel. Who's this Torkel? We'll find out later. The crowd starts gossiping. Is that really the sword slash of someone who just unleashed mana for the first time? Thanks to this grand performance, Theo's luck, which had been at -6, finally reaches 0. The system notifies him that the curse of bad luck he's carried has finally been lifted. Now Theo's fame is beginning to spread throughout the world. Seeing this, Theo feels overjoyed. Finally, his curse is gone. From this moment, Theo will begin his rise. After that, we see in the audience our thick girl, Asa. She's watching Theo's performance with intense focus. And then she says, "I want him as my student. Even more now." Hearing this, Julius gets really pissed off because from the very beginning, when no one even knew Theo, he wanted him as his student. Then the system notifies Theo. Robus Ragnar is causius to Theo. As soon as Robus Ragnar's name is announced, we see a black crow in the background, staring with a deadly serious gaze. And then, finally, Hilda Ragnar shows her interest in Theo. We get a close-up of Hilda's face, her finger on her lips, wearing a cute, seductive smile, like she's ready to eat Theo alive, right then and there. Seeing so much interest in him, Theo is shocked. But when he notices that Hilda is also intrigued by him, that's when Theo gets really happy. And we all know why he's grinning about Hilda's attention, don't we? After that, one by one, the rest of the awakening ceremony continues with other participants. Finally, it's Drea's turn. He puts all his strength into striking the steel plate. There's just a small scratch, but it's enough to pass. Drea passes the ceremony and starts crying with joy. He can't believe he actually made it, but his happiness is short-lived because, next up, Ray steps forward, attacking with his frost technique. Then Hulkus uses his brute strength, and Remy follows with a sharp, precise slash. All three leave massive marks on the steel plate. Drea's joy vanishes. Compared to the 4 hounds of the north, his tiny scratch looks pathetic. But even they don't compare to Theo's mark. In front of Theo's mark, the others look like scratches made by children. Now, only one person is left, Axion. As Axion approaches the steel pillar, the crowd begins whispering. At this point, it's a showdown between the Luster Tiger and the Dark Tiger. People are saying, not even Axion can match Theo's slash. Hearing this, Axion gets really pissed off. He grabs his sword, swallows the soma, and, with a deadly serious expression, channels all his mana into his blade. With a single slash, he summons a massive dragon, and with a bam, his attack slams into the steel pillar, carving out a huge hole. The instructor is stunned, practically ready to faint, realizing this young man might have already surpassed him. Then we see it. Axion's attack has left a hole as big as Theo's. In fact, both holes have formed a cross mark on the pillar. Everyone is in utter shock, whispering, "How is this possible? Both slashes are almost identical. Who will win?" The scene shifts, and the awakening ceremony comes to an end. The instructor addresses the crowd, saying, "To everyone who participated, and especially to those who passed, congratulations. For those who didn't, don't worry. There's always next year." Finally, it's time to announce the rank everyone's been waiting for. The crowd falls silent, their curiosity peaking. Everyone's waiting with bated breath to see who came in first place. And with that, the episode ends here. If you really want to support my channel and want a part 2, write Mommy Hilda in the comments, hit that like goal, and make sure to subscribe if you're new here. So, goodbye.